Mute. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Raven Cup 10-year Heroes Anniversary tournament. Week 1. There was... Let's see if I can get this on screen, actually. Is that on the screen? Mess around with some stuff so I can still see chat while I'm messing with OBS. There we go. So my understanding is that this is going to be this week, and then this will be next week, and this will be the week after that, and then playoffs will happen. Technically, it's called the Heroes 10 EU Cup. Well, it's on the Raven Court Discord server. I have the game saved, and it looks like the organizer's Raven Court. It's right there. But the Heroes 10 EU Cup? Okay. Well, that's what we'll call it, the Heroes 10 EU Cup. For the 10-year anniversary of HOTS officially releasing. Of course, HOTS was, in alpha and beta for more than 10 years at this point. But this is where we're at. And as usual, you lovely people asked me a bunch of questions that you were curious about the answers to, and we are going to attempt, to some degree, to answer them. So I'm going to kill that. Oh, I have two things running. I had the monitor source running, and I had the other thing running. I'm just going to make sure I don't accidentally show games I'm not supposed to. Okay. So a lot of people ask questions about Ashe versus Exodia game 1, I believe, which was Garden of Terror. And hopefully, we don't actually have any questions that require Spazzo's tool for this particular game, I don't think. But I'm going to see if it desyncs the game to run it, because sometimes, questions come up. I have a question where I'm like, oh, how much damage did that do? And I don't know the answer. Spazzo, shout out to Spazzo, by the way, for updating his tool. Specifically for me, for this patch. He was going to update it next patch when the PTR came down. But he specifically went out of his way to update it for me, and even added functionality for like Lucio's new 16 talent, or reworked 16 talent. And shout out to Cascon, who spent an hour formatting all the questions for me, because of course the questions come in essentially in a random order, and sometimes the person doesn't specify which game they're talking about, and you have to go read follow-up comments and go back, and it's often a mess. It usually takes me a little bit of time, but Cascon volunteered to do that for me because he likes organizing things. And we have several questions about this game that we're going to look at, and we're going to end up having to watch I would say a majority of the game to really answer these questions. But the first one is Ashe first picked Diablo, and Exodia responded to it with a quick Raynor pick, followed by Thrall, Ana, and Varian throughout the draft, which paid off in their ability to farm Diablo multiple times throughout the game. What could Ashe have done, either in draft or gameplay, to prevent this? So we're going to be looking at that, because the question very specifically about the value of Thrall and Raynor, really specifically into, and was the Ana punished? And then the other question is, I actually asked this question because I think it's really important that people understand why AA Zera is good and when AA Zera is good and competitive, and it's not diving backliners and 100-0ing them. It's just, we're going to see that attempted, and we're going to see it fail, and I want to go over why. But in season 1 of CCL auction, there was a third pick, Ana on Volskaya, and we immediately picked VP Zera and crushed it. It was not close. So I'm going to talk about the difference between going VP into squishy backliners versus going AA to squishy backliners in competitive specifically. And the first thing we're actually going to look at is the macro decisions by both teams. So I think Garden is a map that a lot of people just sort of don't understand, because the macro decisions for left versus right in the early game are completely different. The first seed is always guaranteed to spawn bottom, either here or here. But right side has bruisers here, left side has bruisers here. You can easily imagine that there's going to be a massive difference in where teams want to go and what they want to do based on whether they're on the left or the right side of the map. And makes a substantial difference. So Varian is not a real hero at level 1. He's super, 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 super weak. Left does have less clear, like less overall wave clear. It's, Hogger can clear a wave, but Hogger is also their most efficient camp clear. So what I'm going to look for is, from Exodia, is relative passivity. I want them to cap these siege in response to knowledge that bruisers are being done. Ideally, siege would end here. So bruisers are capped, and then 10 to 15 seconds later, depending on minion wave state, could be as much as 20 seconds later, depending on minion wave state. These siege are capped, and it helps defend against the bruisers coming in. I want to see a very early bruiser cap, ideally pre-Varian being 4, right at 1 minute, so that maybe they can get some more value out of the fact that they have a hero advantage. But Diablo's not really good until level 7. Zeratul not really good until 16. Kind of 10, but I think they really need 16. So that's what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for Hogger to be on camps, Raynor and Thrall to be sort of the side anchors. That's what I'm expecting to see from the drafts. And then I want to see right side abusing their clear and rotating. Abusing clear frequently means one person goes and clears a wave solo if they can, because then not everyone's rotating, and you buy time. This is interesting. This is actually really tough here. Really good by Dino to give them the pepper stacked up early. They should not let it happen. You can see they're not trying to fight. They're just trying to be here. They're not trying to let Exodia is not letting their space get invaded, because they want to make sure that they can step up to the wave. But they're also not we're trying to fight you, because they're not trying to fight. And honestly, Red is not being as soon as the wave is in the H formation, there should have been an instant blizzard, and then the blizzard doesn't even hit the clear. So we're already seeing Exodia is minor, just trying to hold the space, actually slowed down. This wave should already be cleared. This is actually, it's nitpicky a little bit, but it's also pretty bad for Ash that they have this massive clear advantage. And you can see the wave collapsed. And I am this critical of teams when I'm coaching. I was very critical of HCC teams when I was coaching an HCC team. So 22 seconds, the blizzard should be right here. It should just already be down. Jane is mounted the back line. I don't know what she's afraid of with a level 1 Varian. And then here, the wave should be cleared, and they should all be able to dip. Everyone can leave now. And everyone's leaving here. That's a 3-second difference. Is 3 seconds a huge difference? Not really. It's not like they're going to miss an ESO. But let's say that they're now 3 seconds late to a camp, and then the camp is, 3 seconds late. Can add up over the course of the game. So the first step to having a clear advantage is actually using your clear advantage. Minion missed there. Gonna get it. And we're not posturing for this immediate bruiser camp. I really wanted to see this immediate bruiser camp to punish the Varian, because there's no way that they get stopped from doing the camp. There's just no chance that happens. All 4 on the camp. I really want, I want someone to leave immediately. Doesn't really. I don't think they're gonna. Yeah, they're not gonna really miss Soak. I guess it's fine. Not pushing the bruisers, but that's fine because these have. This is what I was talking about, by the way. I really want these bruisers, in my opinion, were done late, but I really wanted the siege to be done to help depush. Everyone does need to go help here, because even if there were no heroes here, Thrall would be completely incapable of doing anything. And you can see, because they only sent Hogger had to hesitate, and then he had to walk around. And I don't know why Diablo is down here. Diablo doesn't help clear the wave. At best, Diablo is going to put you in a position where maybe you can flip them over the wall and get a kill if they're pushing too aggressively. But I don't understand why they didn't just hard push top with more people, right? Like, do they not want to trade forts? And it's worth noting at this point that Exodia Stack is more than a wave of head. So despite having better clear, because of inefficient movement on the map, this wave hasn't cleared. They can catch up. They can catch up in experience by clearing this wave. They haven't actually missed the soak. They just got it late. But literally 4 people on their team can solo clear a wave at this point in the game in like sub 6 seconds. Why are they not in a position where the waves are getting cleared? And again, it has to do with, well, were a little bit inefficient here, and they were a little bit inefficient here, and it put them behind. Efficiency is the key to clean rotations. Again, I don't know what Diablo's doing here. And so, this is really sort of cute. Like Thrall followed the people who were pushing top once the camp died to like try to slow them down, and he's catching the mid soak. So you had Hogger go all the way from bottom, well, really from bruisers to top to help clear. As soon as this is cleared, Hogger stayed to go the way, but the person who didn't have clear left, and now the person who doesn't clear is out and about. And again, I don't think the soak has actually been. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the soak was actually missed. But yeah, so far I feel like Exodia Stack has been okay. They could have been more efficient. Again, I really want these boosters to be capped defensively to help deal with this, because this, got essentially the entire wall, and that's an abnormal amount for a level 1 bruiser, for a level 2 bruiser game, for a minute 1 bruiser game. And now we're sort of in this position where we have the actual off lane, we have the float, and we have the 3-man. Is Jaina going to help clear? Okay, so Jaina is going to help clear. This feels like a bit like an over-rotation. Do they really need 4 people top here? And the siege ends up doing nothing. Same thing here, by the way. If you know the enemy team is on bruisers, you can cap the siege defensively. It really is very like very optimal to do that. I feel like Exodia was okay with trading forts. I think they had actually thought that they were going to just end up trading forts and they were fine with it. Maybe not. Good attempt there to block the Diablo. I don't know what Bishops is doing sharking around this much. Like, I don't know if you can kill a Thrall without a lot of CC in the early game. Because he's just going to heal so much if he's allowed to be able to, like, if he's able to push his buttons. And he has the movement speed, so he has the steroid to get away. Like, when you see Cure play AA Zera in competitive, if you go back and watch the CCL games, literally until level 7, I don't think he uses a Q on anything that's not a wave. He's just clearing waves, clearing waves, clearing waves, clearing waves, clearing waves. And even at level 7, when he has Wormhole, we see the double Warple here, which double Warple as a talent is something that only gets good at 20. It's really only good with the level 20 Wormhole. Up until then, it's much worse than Wormhole. For AA Zera, because Wormhole gives you 2 empowered AAs if you abuse it for that functionality. Otherwise, you only get the ones. It's a little different. But Cure again wouldn't even consider being aggressive on like an actual hero until he'd finished quest stacks, because he wants to get his blink back so he can like get out if necessary, right? Good attempt on Nana here. This is so clunky. How did this end up happening? Actually, this is something that I would like really extensively go over with teams if I saw this happen. Jaina is by far and away the most important hero to have if they're trying to kill someone at this point in the game because she does all the damage. So how did they end up in a situation where they're going for a pick attempt where Jaina is top? And she couldn't really have even contributed, right? Because she was behind the wall. So if she starts walking out and the minion wave sees her, Exodia is going to be like, well, that's dangerous. They're all missing the root there. It's deeply unfortunate for the quest stack. Yeah. Again, this feels like SL. Does anyone else think this feels like SL? Where like even in GM, Ares will catch someone too far extended in lane, and then be able to get on top of them and like slowly wear them down and gank them before they can get back to safety. But like it's much less common and better. And I was watching this game from Hasu's perspective, and every time Xerath like shimmered anywhere, there's going to be a point later where Hasu's clearing this. Clearing a wave right here, and he's gonna be like, "Oh, I see Xerath right here." And then he pings the bush, and like Xerath's in the bush, and the rest of his team is like all down here. And like, well, I guess I don't have to worry about Xerath because he's up there. Telling everyone where Xerath is, or when Xerath's not somewhere. Like you saw him going top, and you haven't seen him since. Very very active like communication, so you know if you have to be afraid of the Xerath being there or not. So you know if you can be in like because what's overextended varies. And for some heroes, against other heroes, like being here is overextended. Being like barely outside your gate. For some heroes, it's like being here is still not overextended because it just depends. Depends on the drafts. Depends on the individual heroes. We're gonna see. There's no chance Blaze lives here, by the way. There's absolutely zero chance. Which is a good example. It was actually I didn't plan that, but it could not be more perfect. This is overextended for Blaze. Blaze, as an offlaner, the main thing that he actually used to die to a lot in competitive was just body blocks. So if you're so far out in the lane that anyone can get behind you, you're dead. As long as the enemy team has enough either move speed stirrers or slows to get behind you one time, they can just keep you there, and there's nothing you can do about it. You're going to die. So you can see they get the sleep, and then they're like, wait, don't wake him up, don't wake him up. Hasu moves to the block. And you just dead. So what is overextended changes quite a bit. Can't gank a Hogger like that. Good Hoggers will always have spin available in that situation. And, you know, if they just pointed at a wall and they bounce, you're done. So I really hated Bishop Xerath to play this game, like, a lot. I hated his decision making. I hated him trying to gank people who were completely safe. And again, we're going to see it here. So and again, this is this is still a macro decision. It's like, okay, we want Hogger. Hogger's already down here, but we want Hogger to stay here to do the camp, and then we're having Thrall solo clear. And Thrall, he's solo clearing with 2 quest stacks, which means he can't even W the wave, which is just like incredibly painful. I really would have preferred that Hogger backed for this and Thrall came, especially because Hogger in team fights is a little bit less useful pre-13. Pummel is one of his main contributions to team fights. But then you have a different argument here, which is that Thrall can't really do this. Hogger can do this safely. As long as he's E up, it's quite easy for him to like get away. So if they want to soak this wave that's being pushed up by the Bruiser camp, then like arguably this is fine, and Thrall can just suffer a bit. But he's not quite doing that. Have they really not caught up on this minion soak, by the way? Like, one of the first things you should do if you really want to improve it competitive is just go into a game, bring up this experience menu. I don't think it's in the default UI, but all the ops and Spaso's UI both have it. And just like look at how much minion soak you're missing, and then go through and like look where did you miss that minion soak. Because before it was a tempo disadvantage, right? There was a huge wave mid and they just cleared it. But now it's like they're actually like 3 full waves behind. Like, where did these waves get dropped? Try to get the Interrupt Forest, didn't work. Here's a question you should always ask, in general, and I got this from Magic the Gathering way back in the day. What deck in Magic the Gathering? It was which deck is the beatdown, and it was which deck is faster. Because it doesn't matter if you're playing a control deck. If your opponent is playing an even slower control deck, you're the beatdown. If you're playing a control deck that is faster than your opponent's. In HOTS, it's like which comp scales better is a frequent question you need to ask on maps like Garden of Terror. And I think left scales better with the things that have been picked, essentially. Normally, I consider like Zera a very strong scaling hero. Jaina gets like a little bit better with talents, but Jaina can under zero someone right from level 1 in a lot of cases. Certainly squishy heroes. Rhaegar is a hero who like he's really good because of Ancestral and Ancestral 20, but you're into an Ana, so that's not going to happen. So I feel like Wright probably need, with the talents they make, actually need to be more proactive about winning the early game, which didn't happen. So unfortunate. But if they had VP Ring APOC, then they could literally just wombo any single fight. If you have those talents and there's not a lot of counterplay to them, like there's no Sanctification or Gust, they have a little bit of counterplay with Sunder. If Thrall can sunder people away as they're trying to combo off the VP, or sunder the Zera to mess up his cancel timing, then like you have that. Or if Ana can land, if Ana's not in the VP and lands instantly, but Ana should always be in the VP. Ana should be the primary VP target if this is a VP game, and this is a VP game. 100%. This is a VP Ring APOC game. Exodia would have struggled into it anytime they clumped. The thing that made AA Zera work for Cure in CCL was he played it purely as a split push hero, because at 20 it can solo core. You get to 20 as AA Zera, you can actually solo core, and one person sent back will not stop you because he wins most 1v1 duels against most heroes. So like if you send 2 people back, well now there's 2 people in base at level 20, and Zera just double blinks away. And so now your team knows they have a brief 4v3, and Zera's going to get there first. So you can actually have a situation where you have a brief 5v3. And that's what they did consistently. And the one time that I was horrified, absolutely horrified, and they lost, that Kira picked AA Zera was he picked it on Alterac Pass. And he tried to split push and it didn't work because that's not how Alterac's core works. Alterac's core is not subject to being chipped out. And with the armor, like you're not as much of a threat. It's a very different... and it actually cuts your self-sustain because Zera's 13 heals for the amount of damage done. Well, the core has armor, you're doing less damage. So it's actually a significant issue. I do think this game would have gone much better for Ashe if they had been VP Ring APOC. So, what do I think in his variant to pick W1 on variant? Benny's always been a fan of Q1 basically when variant is bad. So to give his argument, I think in a fair way that he would agree with, which is that when he won't be able to taunt one-shot people. Like he just straight up will not be able to taunt one-shot people because the comp doesn't allow for it. He prefers the control that the extra slow gives from Q1 because people are going to get taunted, live, and then walk away. And maybe it allows you to gap pose someone a little bit better if you can Q them and then walk onto them, or maybe it allows you to chase a little bit better. He likes it in that scenario. If you can just straight up under to zero someone, and you don't have to go W10. If you have to go W10, W1 gets substantially worse. So it's not like Benny never picked W1. It's just that he... I think he was frequently forced to early pick variant on other teams, and that led to situations where the one-shot potential was much lower because it was counter-picked more. So it's not like he never picked W. This is inaccurate. I missed this. I missed the level 10 question, actually. Both teams took a while for them to get to first objective. Was this correct for both of them? I talked about that a little bit. I think Right Side has more scaling if they go with different ults, but as it stands, left side has better scaling. So yes, it was it's kind of right and kind of wrong for both teams depending on picks. Around level 10, Exodia pushed bottom fort and got it uncontested with trade of the top fort. Was that a good trade? I think so. I think trading forts there was fine because of where they were already on the map. If they had been in a position to defend, it would be one thing, but they weren't really in a position to defend. They were already all preferencing bottom. We also, I mean, you have to open up a win condition, so you like trading there for it makes it more likely that this can happen. And again, if Azera were actually split pushing more, maybe it would be worse because now Azera makes it a little bit easier for Sarah to get the keep with the catapult, but we're not really seeing that. And this is pretty much past what I would call the early mid game, and the question was specifically about the early mid game macro decisions. This is interesting. I'm gonna look at this from Exodia's vision. So they see everyone sort of preferencing. They saw everyone moving top a little bit, and then they have the really great anchor scout here, and they're like, "Oh, well, they're all top. We can steal their siege." One thing that you should be doing more of, if you want to like play competitively, is go back into the replay and look at your team. So if I was Ashe, oh, we see Xerath there.
My little seed is on the verge of sprouting.
Ah, we saw Blaze there. We saw Diablo.
Heading over to help.
And it's actually happened in HGC. On Sky Temple, there's a famous game that I've used an example where HHE lost a boss on Sky Temple. And the reason they lost a boss on Sky Temple was because they had Blaze clear bottom. Blaze stepped into vision and cleared a bottom wave. And there are only two things up on the map. There were HHE's Bruisers and Boss. And the Korean team they were playing against was the BlizzCon. Saw Blaze clearing bottom safely, like right next to his wall. And they're like, well, if he's clearing it safely, there's no way the rest of his team is there. He'd be clearing it more aggressive or they'd be helping. They're not on either of the other waves. They're not on mid. They're not on top. They must be on the Bruiser camp. And so they just started Boss. And by the time HHE realized Boss had been started, Boss had already been capped. So if I see Blaze poking in through this choke, knowing he's the offlaner, one of the things that I can assume is that his team is far away. Because if his team were closer, he might be getting a little aggressive. Like if his team were flanking around here, he might be a little bit more aggressive about trying to maintain vision. He might turn oil into this bush and be like, where are they exactly? Because then you could, click on them. And you can see the Banshee's actually flying over here to check that. But they're clearly here, right? And the reason this is so important is because if they're here, a fight could start. So Thrall would have to immediately come. But they know they're not here. So they're going to get the siege just completely for free. And that, like, the few people that showed and the direction they were facing and the fact that they were mounted, all that information added up for Exodia to be like, oh, we can just steal their camp. So one thing you can do is go through replays and see where did my team show? How did that affect what the enemy team did? And Spazzo actually added a feature specifically for me. I asked him to. A while ago. This was during CCL. Where is it? Is it in generic stats? Maybe it's in generic stats. Yeah, time and vision. So you can actually see how much time each player spent visible to the enemy team's minimap. And this baffles me, by the way. Jaina, who has the best wave clear on her team, spent 242 in vision. Like every time you step up to a wave and clear it, you should be in vision a little bit. Whereas the Diablo spent 329 vision. Blaze spending 5 minutes and 8 seconds in vision in a 10-minute game, like 50% of the time, he's solo clearing waves. That makes sense. That's totally reasonable. But like, I'm very suspicious of this number. Very, and same thing for Zera. Every time he starts clearing a wave, he gets revealed. So he doesn't get revealed walking up to the wave, right? But he starts clearing a wave, he's revealed. Rhaegar 304, he was helping with camps. That seems about right. 329 for Diablo, very strange. Those are not the numbers I would expect based on the roles in the comp. And it's just, yeah, your number should be higher if you have wave clear, because every time you clear a wave, you should be showing on the minimap. Gotta clear those waves. Other than getting queued by Raynor, Diablo hasn't really been punished much here. One of the questions was how badly was Diablo punished in this draft. We're gonna fast forward a little bit to some of the actual fights. Oof. Oof. There's not really an average. Like, Joe is going to end up showing in waves more than other tanks because she's a wave clear tank. Tyrael's going to end up showing in waves more than other tanks because of Justice for All. If you're Justice for All level 1, you want to be Wing when an enemy hero is trying to clear a wave so that the wave gets cleared slower. Tanks that are focused on disrupting rotations in the early game and actively trying to waste people's time, like Muradin, are going to be in Vision more. People that are playing purely for ganks, like a noob often is, are going to be in Vision less. I think in the abstract, tank and healer should probably be in Vision the least on average by this metric, but a lot of it depends on the hero. Like, Rhaegar is a really good example where he's going to be in Vision more than other healers. Because he has wave clear. Like, in an average game, because he's going to be hitting waves, he should be spending more time in Vision. I think the record for being out of Vision is like 4 minutes. like it was a weird BOE game on HGC where both teams were playing defensive comps, where both of them wanted the other team to race so they could then force a fight under the Immortal. But in like a 6-minute game, Muradin was out of Vision for 4 minutes. The only Vision right there. And it's not in range. This is the hard part of playing Jaina, in my opinion. This is the only hard part about playing Jaina. Because clearing waves on Jaina is very easy. Is you have to stay mounted, and then you have to be in range when your tank actually engages.
Oh, there it is.
Is it range? I'm kidding. So, like, you want Jaina, like, here. And she wants to immediately ride up and drop everything if this is an actual kill. And if this is not an actual kill attempt, because Jaina has very long CDs, she doesn't want to use her abilities to, like, poke or do, what do people call it? Fake damage, white damage, whatever. But you don't want to, you basically, if you blow your combo as Jaina, you really want someone to die. You don't want to do a little bit of damage to them, and they're like, I can leave now. Because you only get the one chance. She has long cooldowns. It's a little bit different with E-Build. You're more likely to be able to like get an E reset and do a little bit more damage, even if they don't get hit through all waves of Blizzard. But basically, you're looking to kill someone every time you step up like this. So either you're not looking to kill someone, and Diablo's just like messing with you. Like, he could charge here and get the flip just for the reset to like help a little bit with wave clear, as long as he doesn't think he's in any danger. I think it's not a great thing to do as Diablo decision in the game, but maybe that's. But if they're actually trying to kill Benny here, then Jaina was late. They did have to use Sunder there. If I was the grenade late. Nah, grenade was just late. That's unfortunate. Diablo even going in here seems crazy. I mean, yeah, it's not. Gotta predict that with the travel time. I think there's something I always say, which is that there's no kill like overkill. If your team's going that hard on someone, just grenade them. Like you don't have to wait for the ancestral to come out. You can just grenade them. But yeah, I think if that were a different team comp that didn't have as much percent damage, Diablo would be capable of living there with W build in a lot of cases. Is the insane thing. Just so much healing, but they have the anti heal. They walk in. Does hot sound weird? Hot sounds echoey. Oh, does that fix it? Normal? Yeah, Obs was playing the HOTS audio twice because of a thing. They added a feature where you can pipe the audio directly from an app. So, like, if I'm playing music in one thing, you guys won't hear it. You'll only hear the thing coming from the app. But Obs also had my headphones. That's actually not supposed to be there at all anymore. Let me get rid of this. And I'll figure it out later.
A seed has been planted.
You guys want a better example? Now that you fixed it, can you start again? Good aggression here. Just like the window. And look at the timing. Look at how crisp this is. They're pushing because they want to kill the port while they have the 16 advantage. But then as soon as, like, literally the second before they're not 16 anymore, they start backing up. And here we're gonna see my Zeratul criticism come through. Like, Zera's positioning to like get into this backline. And they're like, oh no, I actually can't do that because the team's protecting the backline. It's not gonna work. Imagine if he was VP though. Imagine if he was VP. Fast forward to the next team fight.
Another seed.
I think I should do stealing the camera from one of the obs. Unfortunate. That was really unfortunate that the sleep dart missed because of the Sunder.
Hero slain.
Yeah, Diablo just can't. I don't even think we saw. Did we even see like the real punish? No, we didn't even see the real punish. We didn't even see like Q's getting queued. Diablo Q's getting queued by Raynor to like knock them off of the engage. Like that's the huge punish from that pick. We just see Diablo getting like farmed by the percent damage, and Rhaegar getting farmed by the fact that he can't ancestral. Rhaegar, by the way, in this situation, I've been talking about how I would have preferred VP, I would have preferred Ring, I would have preferred APOC. I also would have preferred Bloodlust. Ancestral is unplayable into 100% anti-heal. I'm just saying. I honestly think Bloodlust was better. I don't think it matters when Diablo hits Spell Shield into the Thrall 7.
There's my precious seed.
I think he's just dead.
Blue team has destroyed a fort.
Diablo like depends on not taking damage from spells, but he also to not get bursted down, but percentage damage obviously ignores that. And then he really depends on being able to pop his health back up with healing. What about combustion? Bunker is pretty good this game. No, Ancestral's percent damage. Percent damage is spell damage that is not reduced by armor. Percentage damage is not reduced by armor. I don't. Are there? There are currently only like two ways in the game of reducing percent damage. Right? There's anti-magic shell on Arthas, and I think one of the Diva talents still technically reduces it, which might not even be true anymore. Actually, after the Diva rework and the refactoring of her code that happened. Percentage damage is problematic. I'm trying to click on the talent, but I. Oh, yeah, this thing. Control. Mansa. Oh, okay. Yeah. Blaze gets more shield at 16, but it doesn't reduce the damage. Also, for my own edification, how much did W1 do this game? It won't actually say it, will it? Because it doesn't give me how many times the reset happened. Oh, yeah. 287 damage. Not a ton of overpower damage. I wonder if he wasn't pairing autos very much. Although I guess to be fair, his overall damage wasn't very high either. It doesn't look like he was autoing heroes very often in this game. How many casts of taunt did he actually get off? Oh, he only cast taunt 6 times and he got an overpower proc every single time. Okay, that's way better then. Is it Mal'Ganis' Dark Conversion spell damage so that Spell Shield can block, even though it says... Mal'Ganis' is weird in a variety of ways. It basically calculates as a percentage how much damage it should deal, and then it gives you a dot for that amount of damage. But it's not technically percent damage. This also means that it can be amped by spell power and spell and it gives Mal'Ganis a heal for that amount, which means that it can be healed. Like the heal that Mal'Ganis gets can be amped by spell power, which isn't super useful because like if you hit 100% health, you hit 100% health. It doesn't matter if you would have healed for 20%. Yeah, no, you're 10%. Okay, this is a joke. Okay, Shogal has talents that can deal with it. He can just go molten block, and it's not so good. Does anyone have any more questions about this game? Like, I think this was pretty straightforward, where left had much better map movement, even though right had better clear, and right just lost every fight because their whole comp was countered, and they didn't really do anything to deal with the Ana. I like talking about the left versus right dynamic on Garden with the way the early game functions, which is why I spend a little more time actually watching the whole game. But I also feel like when I haven't streamed in a while, I'm slow. So one of the main reasons that I'm doing a weekly show, in addition to the fact that doing everything at once last time broke me and was like 4 hours, is because I felt like I was not warmed up to doing HOTS analysis. I feel like if I do a weekly show, I'll be able to get warmed up to HOTS analysis. Stream last time was insane. Not the longest post show I've ever done, for the record. All right. Rift versus three-legged cats. This is Rift, right? Yeah. Getting warmed up. Well, it's when I talk about HOTS, when I'm like coaching a team and playing and watching HOTS, 10 to 20 hours a week, and then talking to the team after every single game about what we did well, what we did wrong, and then going into draft prep and thinking about, okay, this hero counters this hero, then questions that like come up all the time, I just have the answer. They're in my brain. Like I'm thinking about it all the time. But if I'm not actively playing HOTS myself, and someone asks me to do like high level analysis, I can get to the same place, but I have to remember things instead of just like knowing them. It's a bit different. Yes, the Spazzo UI is available. Anyway, just I think you can literally Google Spazzo GitHub. I think is there a there used to be a command in chat. Maybe it's Spazzo. No, there used to be a command in chat that linked to it, but since there is not, I will link it in chat. There, or Elite Spark will get me. So the way it works is you have to download download the maps folder, replace your maps folder in your Heroes of the Storm install. You download a conversion thing, and then you convert the replays into the special format with all the triggers built in. And then you play that version of the replay with Spazzo's interface selected as your interface, which is under Observer and Replay. So Spazzo version 39 right there. And then it all works. There's a pretty easy walkthrough on the install page for it. It's not super loud. Is this why people think Raynor is bad? It's terrible in this draft. So Raynor was picked really late too, which is like it's worth noting that the team that's been picking it, Exodia Stack, is like the team that sort of being like Raynor's good. We like picking Raynor because we think Raynor is good in the meta. Dino has been very clear that the reason he's picking Raynor is because his and Hasu's hero pools don't overlap very much. So they can early pick Raynor, and then either one of them can play it. So if they see a Rig or an insane pick later in the draft that only one of them plays, they can pick it, and the other person wants to play Raynor. Sometimes they pick it late in the draft, but they also think, well, at least Dino thinks, that a lot of ranged have been nerfed. And every time a hero in a role is nerfed, it automatically brings up every other hero in that role, right? That should be fairly obvious. So they're like, Hanzo's been nerfed, Vala's been nerfed, Cassia's been nerfed. All of these main ranged heroes have been nerfed. So that brings Raynor up. I've always thought Raynor was in like an okay spot because the way Raynor Q counters Diablo Charge, Blaze E, any sort of linear approach that's not inherently unstoppable, especially if a player is playing on like a reasonable ping. Like the lower your ping is, the more things Raynor Q counters to some degree. It's even pretty good against like Lucio, like because his path of travel is fairly predictable, and there's some things you can like Raynor Q that you would be surprised by that are actually very disruptive. And so frequently you only have to like land one really insane Q in the late game to like straight up win a team fight. And you're shooting at a lot of them because they're going to build that gives CDR to Q. So if you get 5 Qs in a fight and one insane Q can win a fight, and even if the odds of getting an insane Q are only like 30%, you shoot 5 of them, you're on to something pretty good. What pick do I hate the most this draft? It's got to be something on this side because this draft is insane. I actually kind of wish the Braywing were Kerosene. That's the one thing where I'm like, but they did pick it very early. They didn't know how insane Kerosene would have been at the time. So those are the good things about Raynor. Raynor has really good sustain. He has good damage from a safe range. You're frequently out-autoing people. He's relatively buffed compared to other range. I agree with Dino on that. But here, like queuing Sylvanas, maybe if you interrupt her E reactivation time so that she tries to take E and can't, really not great in a Braywing. Really not great into a noob, because you can't queue a noob charge. It doesn't work that way. A noob charge is unstoppable. It's good in a Blaze. You can maybe disrupt Chromie loop by queuing her while she's looping someone else and like trying to mess up the combo on the loop. But that's not insane. So like this is a last pick Rainer into arguably 4 bad matchups, or matchups where he does nothing. And the matchup he's good into is the off lane that like over the course of the game you're going to interact with the least. That's terrible. This is a terrible Rainer. Like it's absolutely awful. And then the next question for this game was, are there any redeeming qualities about drafting Malf here? And like again, the order they draft Malf into Chromie. They are now in a situation where their only answer to Loop is Bunker. And Bunker's in the offlane. Our friendship with Rainer ended, by the way. Uh-huh. To be fair, I don't think Rainer's first pickable. You guys were first picking it. I think Rainer's in a position where he is like good enough to be picked in the flex slot. I also think Rainer has a little bit of under exploration in his builds. So there is that. I'm not sure that people are taking optimal Rainer talents. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, Malf can't cleanse Loop. This is a pick comp. Pick comps really are focused on heavily like bursting people and under-zeroing people. Malf can't deal with that. That's like literally Malf's main weakness as a healer, is he can't deal with that exact thing. And again, they knew that when they picked it. Right? They see the... Well, I guess they didn't really know that necessarily, because the Noob Sylvanas were picked specifically to punish them out. But the Noob Sylvanas were available. Right? Picking the Muradin here is also weird. You really want a hero, ideally, if you don't have Johanna or another tank that clears waves. So you want a tank that can go over walls if you're going to be playing pick comps on Dragonshire. And Muradin and Noob are like the top 2 tanks for going over walls. But they have a funny interaction where Beetles can block stun from Muradin. So like Muradin's tankier, but has a bad matchup into a Noob specifically. So, like, both are available. But they pick the Muradin and let the Anub through, and then Rainer doesn't counter Anub the way Rainer could potentially counter Muradin, because you can Q Muradin's jump. Like, in terms of prepping their draft for what picks could come down the line, this 3-4 is, like, absolutely horrendous. And then I don't understand the Rainer pick at all. Ooh, we get to fast forward through another replay. Wait. And delete these questions as I answer them, not before. Tomb of the Spider Queen. Rip versus Three-Legged Cats. So, Three-Legged Cat. Tomb of the Spider Queen normally desyncs with Spazzo's UI. Spazzo doesn't know why Tomb desyncs more than other maps. But thankfully, we actually got a full replay on Tomb for once. And in this game, Lucio actually took the up to 11 talent. Hitting an enemy hero with Soundwave or push it off increases the duration of Amp It Up. Soundwave grants 0.25 seconds and push off grants 0.5 seconds if Amp It Up is active. The bonuses are granted to its next activation up to 1.5 seconds. Passive increased duration of Amp It Up by 1 second. And this was just changed recently in the patch. I think this is the first competitive game where this talent is picked. But it was only picked once in this whole tournament so far, and it was this game. And I'm gonna tell you my conclusion now, and then we're gonna watch it, and you guys can see if you agree with me. There was very little bonus time from queuing or D'ing people. So the talent mostly read add 1 second of extra duration to Amp It Up, which is kind of meh. Like, it's not the best thing in the world. It's a little bit more damage from reverse amp, which was taken in some cases. But the thing that Lucio was primarily doing was playing around Blessed. He was standing way far in the back, so Blessed wouldn't bounce to him. And he was not getting Blessed. And I think the reason the 16 talent was picked is up the frequency sort of baits you into trying to get a little bit closer to things so that you can get your increased use your increased auto range to hit enemy heroes and get your risk going. But if you're just like, nah, I'm never going to do that, that's bad. Ignoring the fact that even if you like, if a blessed happens and you save the target, and then there's a fight afterwards, and you get a second amp in that fight because of up the frequency, it's going to be better than up to 11 because amp by default lasts 3 seconds. So unless that 1 second saved someone, just pick Rejuvenescentia at that point. Well, Rejuvenescentia it's interesting, right? Because it is technically more burst healing, if that's what we're thinking about. But you essentially have to run the math and be like, is the 1 second of up to 11 more healing than 7.5% of someone's health? Right? So amp increases the healing to 187 health per second. We can actually just do the math. Right? So it'd be 180. It's 187 versus 7.5%. So what does 7.5% of someone's health pool have to be? These are level 13 numbers at this point, so bear that in mind. We should be doing this with level 0 numbers. What are level 0 numbers? Level 0 numbers are easier for everyone to understand, in my experience. It's 112 at level 0. So what is 7.5%? Or what number is 1112 7.5% of? That's around 1,500. Right? Do it the other way just to make sure my math is good. Yeah. It's around 1,500 health. So, like, for instance, Lucio has just under that, 1,442 health at level 0. So, yeah, if you don't specifically get the extra duration, and the extra duration changes the equation to Trilite. If you actually get in a full extra second, then you get 2 extra seconds of amp and you double the healing. Well, now you're looking at needing 3,000 health at level 0 for up to 11 not to be better. So if the question becomes, do you think you can get the extra duration consistently? Then that's very different. But the one of the main ways you get the extra duration consistently is by being very aggressive as Lucio in between amps to like D and Q people. And you have to be D'ing and Qing enemy heroes. Well, if you're taking the talent to be relatively passive and just stay in the back line, that's not really, it's not.
Heads up, people. Our fort's been trashed. Your killing spree is over. Shoot.
Okay, so we're going to look at a few things here in my amazing stats tool. And I mean Spazzo's amazing stats tool. Some new generic stats. Where? I know it's in here somewhere. It should be a 24, which should make it relative. There it is. Amped upcasts. So up to this point in the game, there have been 24 amped upcasts. So we're going to end up at like slightly more than double that because this is a very long game. So there's going to be a significant number of extra casts that have happened. And Spazzo added the following trackers. So this is reverse amp damage from bonus up to 11 duration. So this is additional damage done specifically because of the passive from reverse amp. So we'll get to know exactly how much damage was done there. We get to know amp it up total duration after selecting up to 11. So this is the total duration. So if this is 30... If this is 40 seconds, 30 seconds of that were normal, and 10 seconds were not. Amp it up to bonus duration while not active. So this is how much bonus duration he stored before activating an amp to an amp. And this is up to 11 bonus duration while active. So he got bonus duration from hitting a Q or a D on someone while it was active. And then I think in tab 2 was the bonus healing. And unfortunately there. Yeah, crossfade amped healing to self. So this is the damage, the additional healing he gave to himself. and the additional healing he gave to allied heroes. I kind of wish I had this by ticks, because if we had this by ticks, then we could more easily do the math on whether or not Rejuvenous Essential would have been strictly better. And we're just gonna... So Rejuvenous Essential would have been better there, topping up the Leo, like automatically. We still don't have any bonus duration. And again, we're just playing... It just really feels like this player, this Basilica, is just playing around Blessed. He doesn't see the Johanna. Blessed is available. Oh, Blessed isn't available right now, actually. Although he is somewhat similarly vulnerable to Horrify. Did he just Q and not get bonus duration? A Q there. Oh, but he's currently amping. So it doesn't go in the icon because he's currently amping. Again, most of that amp was on tanks. So Rejuvenous Essential would have been better. And then we have to look at the other thing. Like here, amp's on cooldown, so it doesn't matter, but he could be autoing the Gul'dan right here because of the increased range, right? Increased range doesn't matter here, but now amp's on cooldown. And so he's gonna get Lucio's auto actually hits 4 times for every time it goes off. It's just like Genji's auto, but Genji's just 3 times. So you actually get like 1.2 seconds of CDR for every one auto. So amp it up is at 11 seconds here. It would already be down to like sub 10. He'd be able to auto here, right? So he'd be down to like sub 5 at this point. Definitely be able to auto here. Well, maybe not, because wall raid wasn't actually active. Right, he lost the wall raid at some point because he didn't get back on the wall. So Junkrat died. What did Junkrat die by? 99 overkill? He would have been able to amp 2 seconds ago. And Junkrat was alive 2 seconds ago. Would 1 second of healing have been enough to save the Junkrat? Let's look at the Junkrat dying. Junkrat dying specifically. Was Junkrat in range to be healed? Really horrifying. Also, Junkrat tanking the entire minion wave to participate in this fight is deeply awkward. Could that have been avoided? Wait. I'm just gonna... Now I have to look. And he kind of just walks into the wave. No, he wasn't in amp range. Even if he'd had the amp bank, he wasn't in amp. Even if he'd amped like on cooldown, he wasn't in amp range. He just could have found the Junkrat. You can't be doing that though, as Junkrat. You can't just like walk through a minion wave and take all that damage. It's not. No, you're not allowed to do that. He either needed to like start clearing the wave, even though the fight was going on. He died to piss. Is that what Mene says? Jesus. Brutal. Yeah, you can't be doing stuff like that. But yeah, Amp was not better than Rejuvenous Essential that fight. And we can kind of we can go over here, we can see that. Like, he didn't get any bonus up to 11 duration. Which, again, maybe this is a bug in Spaz's joke, because I swear he queued someone. But he had 2 total amps. And he's had a total of 8 seconds of duration. So I mean, the math checks out. It's a talent bug. Spaz's UI bug, or is it a talent bug? Someone confirm that you're getting bonus duration stored when you queue people? Do I not understand how the talent works? This Soundwave grants you a 1/4 of a second of bonus duration. Something is very strange there. Let's... And then here is the exact thing we're trying to avoid, right? We're trying to avoid the blast. So this is really, like, bad that this blast actually caught the Lucio. But he ends up not getting hard focus. It doesn't die instantly, but it does end up doing it. And that's like the exact thing we're trying to avoid by taking this talent, not getting baited into being too far up so that we can get free autos off, and yet it happens anyway. Thankfully, red doesn't manage to end, so we get more data on the talent. We only care about Lucio, so we're going to fast forward until Lucio's alive again.
It'd be a smart move to defend here.
We're going to come up on the thing that deeply annoyed me here in a minute. Actually, it's not even in a minute. It's, I forget how long this game takes.
Danger's lurking there.
This is relatively passive Lucio play from what we're compared to what we're I'm used to seeing. But I'm used to seeing Lucio aggressively like trying to find out where people are. But again, it's very dangerous in the Blast specifically. Blast is just an extremely wide skill shot. And if anything is nearby you, like even if it misses, it doesn't miss. Especially now that we're 20, because Joe's skill is going to skill into the 20 Blast. Like even a bounce is pretty much guaranteed to kill you. So you can't even like get bounced to. I think it's positioning. Like it feels like it's close enough to be the Muradin if they try to go on the Muradin, but otherwise you won't get bounced too. That was fine. I really want to get a D or a Q on someone. Because I pre-watched this replay to kind of get a sense of how good I thought the talent was. And I did not remember the thing ever. Yeah, standing around corners is one of the... Seriously? Standing around corners from walls is one of the best ways to deal with Lucio. If you think Lucio is going to like ride this wall, just stand here as a tank. And then they're just dead. Red Robot used to farm Yasuo on Lucio, Season 1 of Oxygen, on Garrosh. And he literally just throw taunt. He would stand around the corner from a wall he thought he was going to be riding around and just throw taunted him. He was dead. Every single time. Like you can't react in time. You can't like boop them away, which is your normal. So we haven't booped and we haven't D'd. We got a boop there. Did the boop actually hit the Tracer though? Okay, so we did get the sound wave. It's hard to know if this. Okay, no, okay, and we did get bonus duration. Okay, no, that's working fine. I just don't know. I don't know how that earlier Q didn't technically count as giving duration. That was pretty crazy. And I think this won't iterate until after he amps again. And again, we're seeing like no amp here because the healing is not needed. And we're essentially, at this point, amp is essentially out of combat healing. So we're seeing the amp here. Yeah, those two aren't iterating. So we know we have 0.25 bonus duration while not active. And it didn't iterate. I'll have to pings pass up and figure out why that's not going up. The total amp duration stat should be accurate. So we can make some inferences based on the number of amp casts plus the total duration at the end. So here, Bless hasn't been used yet, but amp's on cooldown. Oh, now Bless has been used. So now Bless has been used, and we're fine. We're wall riding right here. We would be getting CDR on this Joe with 2.2 additional range. Right, so from the moment Bless was used, and we stopped having to be worried. So we're at 1720. Amp is up. Amp is basically up now. Do we need amp? I mean, Crinkle's a little low, Genji's a little low. We do end up amping. So could we have kept going with that fight if we'd had amp? Or were we gonna back off regardless? I think we would have backed off regardless, so the extra amp probably didn't actually matter.
I require assistance.
Bunker. This, by the way, this is where I'm really annoyed at Right Side's decision making. Right Side just traded Entomb for Bunker, and Bunker is their only answer to Entomb. So whenever Bunker's on cooldown and Entomb is on cooldown, arguably they have a better comp. And they also are gonna have like a narrow 9-second window where if they consistently posture for a fight, they'll have Blessed. And I really think that they should be aggressive here and try to find a force, like try to force boss or something, like force blue to fight them. Because I think they actually have, when both Bunker and Entomb are down, I think their comp is actually a little bit better. Because the Entomb is like the main thing that's really threatening Mal. So Mal has a pretty free fight. But they just back off and let the enemy team get Bruisers and Siege, and now they have to deal with that, which means they're going to lose boss for free. Super strange. I do think that's not very intuitive because like a lot of their heroics are on cooldown. You're like, oh, well, we don't want to play without our heroics, but you gotta ask yourself which team has better heroics. Like, do you have the tool? Which team has better tools at dealing with them? And you like, Malf gets Entombed and dies.
Double whammy.
Again, we're kind of using amp out of combat for healing.
Always thank you.
I'm also primarily focused on the healing aspect of this, because healing in HOTS is like really broken in terms of like the sheer amount of healing that exists. I'm not taking into account so far the extra second of speed that could potentially happen because it's literally not what we're using it for this game. We're not like using it to run at the enemy team or even using it to run away in a lot of cases, right? The player is pretty much using it for the healing. It's possible that there's like very aggressive amp or up to 11 tech that involves using it for the speed. But 3 seconds of speed should be enough, so I kind of doubt that. If anything, Rejuvenescentia providing healing in speed might be like the way you'd want to do that in a lot of cases.
It is over.
Again, we're fast forwarding. This game went on for quite a while. There was a lot of posturing. And again, we're playing like we're on the other side of the wall. Like again, very, 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 very safe play. Entomb again getting just insane, insane value.
Start your engines.
Cascon reminded me of this actually. Basilica was actually a GM Ariel 1 trick in 2018. And he was on an HTC Open team that was performing like fairly well.
I feel their power.
So I haven't seen his name in many, many, many years. So I don't know when he came back to the game. He had a fair amount of competitive experience, but it was a while ago. So he clearly has his own ideas, which is one of the reasons we're getting to see this talent showcased. Look at that.
Kaboom! There goes a bolt.
There was another question about the series, by the way, which I'm just now remembering, which was should Leo be E-build? E-build is terrible here. Leo's E-build is really, really good when you can consistently get onto people before they do damage. You can't get onto a Junkrat before he does damage with Rip Power. Like, that's not a realistic thing to be doing. He's just very, very, very long range. The hero that I always use as a perfect E-build example is Cassia, because she has such short range that you're always going to be able to get on her. Like Jaina, terrible E-build target. Not only because E-build is not very... Reduced spell power is not very good against Jaina specifically because of the way her trait works, but also because Jaina should be completely like mounted, hard to see. You don't know where she's necessarily coming from right before an engage starts, and then Jaina rides up and kills someone like right as they're taking engage. And Genji, Leo E-build I think isn't as effective with Tracer 7 and Gul'dan 7. I mean, wait, is Tracer not locked and loaded? Locked and loaded. Oh, that's okay. You're saying because of this? Yes, that is true. Basically, damage reduction is not as effective into anyone who's boosting their power, their damage with spell power, because everything stacks additively, with some exceptions. So, like, you're not going to be able to E-build a Tracer. Also, you can cleanse damage reduction with Bunker. You hop in, you hop out. It's just gone. Whereas W build puts a lot of pressure on Johanna and Blaze. If you're in a game, and Bunker's the only counter to W build, right? So Bunker is the counter to both E build and W build, but W build does a lot more overall. You do occasionally see AA build specifically into Blaze because then you can't cancel runner, but you can't go AA build into blinds. So like I think W build is actually the only choice this game. Would a different Tracer level 20 have been better? Yes. How should both teams play turn-ins? I feel like Rip got 0 value from pays. I think the way teams played turn-ins was mostly fine. Like, people were specifically not fighting after they got a turn-in because they didn't want to die. I think the 0 value from turn-ins is mostly a matter of vision plus clear. Like, if one team has a lot of clear, it's really hard to get a ton of value. There was a team in HGC who did a comp where it was like they had Tychus and they specifically used Odin to clear Webweavers, and they had Rag and they used Lava Wave plus Fort to clear like the other lanes, and it was just you could not get value into their turn-ins, and eventually the enemy team made a mistake and died, and it was over. Like, if you make it so that your buildings will always live through Webweavers, then Webweavers you just let them turn in. It doesn't matter. I really don't want to rewind the game to look at the Tracer question. But Tracer should have been total recall this game, in my opinion. I think when I was watching this live, I noticed at least 3 times she would have lived, but she died if she was total recall. Because she got a recall off. And then, like, died anyway. Like, she actually got the recall off and died anyway. Whereas if her health had been restored to full. The main reason to go get stuffed is when you can use the explosion to like counterplay something or peel or even like haymaker someone in, like really get them out of position. None of that really applies here. Like Muradin jump is the one thing she could be trying to potentially like actually actively interrupt. She could maybe peel the Genji, but you don't really want to. Like a good Genji player will save deflect specifically for bomb, and then you don't really want to. You don't want to be bombing Genji players who are doing that. I don't know if the Genji player actually did that. But... And like here, this is a good example, right? And I hated this at the time. Get Stuck can also just like screw your team. Say we bomb, we W, we knock Crinkle arguably to safety, like further away from our damage dealers. Like Gul'dan can't hit the Muradin anymore. Like if you pick a displacement, you have to be really careful that you never use the displacement to help the enemy team. Excellent, excellent, excellent bunker. I actually almost want to fast forward until recall goes in cooldown again. Again, this game lasted a long time. There was a lot of posturing. There should be a lot of posturing in late game situations like this. Like there should be a lot of, if you're a little overextended, we're gonna kill you. Okay, you're seeing us, but you're not actually overextended. I guess we can't kill you. Like, and blue is like letting the siege push bottom. Red should have sent someone to respond to that and didn't. And so they were technically winning that trade in terms of like map state. I guess we should look at that fight before the mouth death from the Lucio's perspective. This is also the problem with this game in terms of analyzing it for up to 11 value specifically, which is that Malf was just caught out of position and died a couple times. And at that point, like, the subtle difference of what talent you pick is like not the most important thing. We're seeing the amp. He'd probably have amp back up here. So you could top everyone off here if he had up the frequency instead of amp, so he'd be 2 seconds ahead in terms of overall healing. But instead it's up here and he does amp. Okay. So we gotta do some math for everyone who in my chat who likes math. Get excited. So we had 53 amp casts. Which is 29 amp casts since we were level 16. Apparently we got no up to 11 bonus duration while active and only 2 seconds while it was not active, assuming that is accurate. So we had 29 casts, 29. We got 87 seconds of amp duration. We should have had 87 seconds of amp duration. In fact, we had 221 seconds of amp duration. So we got 121. Math is hard. So we got 34 bonus seconds of amp duration. Yeah, math checks out. And we only got 2 seconds of bonus from D and Q, which is pretty bad, right? Like, think about all the Q. Think about how long the game went past, and we only got 2 bonus seconds. So, I think in the end, Rejuven Essentia actually would have been more healing than the 1 extra second. And then the only thing we can look at is reverse amp damage. We only got a 3, again, because we were playing so far back, we only got 370 bonus damage from reverse amp over the entire duration. We just weren't amping on top of people. We were only amping when our team had taken damage, and by the time our team had taken damage, the focus target was usually already dead, and everyone had disengaged, and we're waiting for cooldowns to come back up, and we were just topping people off. So if you're going to do this, if you're going to play this extremely passive version of Lucio, and just use amp to top people off essentially after fights are over, Rejuven Essentia is going to be better. Or up the frequency will be better, because if you get it back, if you can get amp it back up mid-fight because of the auto range and because of the CDR, then that's even better than Rejuven Essentia is. So I don't think the relative balance has changed. Up to 11, in order for it to be good, you have to be getting the bonus duration by queuing and D'ing enemy heroes very consistently. I would estimate that you needed to get like an average of 1 second bonus duration per amp, which is like 4 Q hits, right? Or 2 Q hits and 1 D hit per amp, something close to that. Like that's how the numbers break down. That's a big ask. That's quite difficult to do. I'm not sure that's going to happen. Another very silly question. And now we have a very silly question, which I believe the answer is no, but we're gonna. Yeah, I'm assuming all amps are healing, because in that game, pretty much every amp was healing, right? So I'm trying to compare apples to apples in the sense that in that game, every amp was healing. This is what the healing numbers would have broken down as. Either of the other talents would have been better. If you're doing speed, like, do you need an extra second of speed? Like the extra, like when is exactly 1 extra second of speed going to be the make or break? And it's 33% more, I guess, because it's 3 seconds versus 4 seconds. So the first question here is we're actually going to look at the draft. What would I pick instead of Raynor? And or other map that begins with T. This is where's the D? Wait a minute. Is this the right? No, this is the wrong game. This is a different Towers game. I converted the wrong replay. My bad. We're supposed to be looking at this game. Yeah, Rip versus 3-legged cat. Easy. So Raynor was picked again very, very late. ETC plus Raynor. And the question is just, what would I pick here instead of Raynor? I don't think Raynor's bad here necessarily. It's good into the ETC. It's tanky versus the Genji. You can mix healing and movement speed. That's true. You could, like, if you had needed 2 seconds of movement speed and then you needed healing because you were like getting turned on. But again, in that game, and I think the reality is for most competitive games that we see, either amp is used as an engage where everyone's at full health, so it doesn't matter how much healing a talent does. It's just like completely irrelevant. And in those cases, Epsilon frequency is almost always better because you get amp back faster. So if the engage goes badly, having amp back faster for the healing is the most important thing. Or it's only used for healing. And like those are like the two extremes. The mixing movement speed versus healing mid fight is fairly rare and only happens when like a fight went badly. So you could have the situation not occur by having played better. They don't know about the Genji, for the record, when they did the pick. But, Raynor is tanky. It is relatively hard to harass a Raynor as a Genji. Again, the Brightwing matchup is kind of whatever. The Blaze matchup is very good. So like your Raynor is good against both of the enemy team's frontliners. I don't really see a problem with the Raynor here, if I'm being honest. But again, the huge thing that Raynor does is to counter frontliners is Q them. And when Exodia stack is taking Rainer, they're going CDR at 7, so they have more Qs. Every trait given the pepper that hits a hero gives 1.5 seconds of CDR to Q. And Q's cooldown is just straight up reduced by 3 seconds. And if you hit 2 or more heroes with Q, you get another 3 seconds off. So you can just like Q and Q and Q and Q and Q and keep knocking people away and wearing them down. It's just a battle of attrition. I don't know why we're not seeing that talent. I am on the fence about whether or not Fight or Flight or Behemoth Armor is better at level 4. And then if you're just knocking people away, you're not getting CC'd in the first place. I don't know why your E is unstoppable. I don't know why this isn't Banshee 20. So like this is something that happened a lot during HGC where people would pick heroes that other teams were picking, and then they wouldn't copy the build. They wouldn't copy like the playstyle that was making the hero good. They would just pick the hero and then pick what they thought was good on the hero without understanding that there were like really specific reasons. Imitation is the first step of learning. is a saying I've always liked. Where like if you don't know why something is good, try it yourself. But don't go mixing stuff up. Like try the exact thing, and then see if you can figure out why that's good. Or watch and watch the replays and figure out like are these things getting value. So I don't mind the Rainer there at all. Was there a better pick? Is a slightly different question. Would I have been happy with something else? It's actually and what was showing at the time? So at the time, blue had Junkrat, Blaze, and Mouth. No, Mouth was banned. They were in the 1-2, so they just had Junkrat, Blaze. And then Brightwing ETC. Honestly, you know what I hate? You know what I hate here? I hate the Anduin pick. I don't mind the Rainer pick at all. It completely shuts down their entire front line. But they don't have a good way of light bombing people other than Muradin jumping in. And the enemy team has a lot of ways to interrupt Salvation. And they already have 2 backliners that are going to be standing pretty far back. So pull is not going to be terribly useful this game. I actually really hate the Anduin pick, looking at it. I think the Rainer pick is fine. I think the Anduin pick is bad. They could have gone Anduin Genji, and I would have been okay with that. Because then you have a light bomb delivery system. Yeah. But if I were gonna change a pick in here, I would have to change one or the other pick. Picking them together is what's bad. That's the major problem. Okay.
Heroes slain.
So we're gonna spend a little bit of time looking at Muradin until minute 12 of the game. Okay, so now we're level 7. What would I pick instead of Anduin? I just take healing. Like obviously there's a lot of good healer picks there still, because there weren't many heroes that were banned, right? What was banned? Lucio was banned. So Lucio was banned and Malf was banned. And Brightwing was picked. So like you have the majority of the healers to pick from. This is a good example, by the way, of when I'm drafting every day and playing every day. You know who'd have been good, actually? Ariel would have been really good. Because Ariel gives you the whip for both Blaze E and ATC sled. Did they actually use Muradin to deliver Light Bomb? That's a question we can look at. We're going to be looking at Muradin for the next little bit for a different question. Stugat would have been pretty good. I had a lot of options in terms of fielders. Okay. So we're on Trice's perspective. So we're looking at, are people getting value from Skullcracker versus the other level 7 talents? Is implied by the way the question was asked. So you get 1, 2, 3. So there we used Skullcracker to essentially guarantee lane to Q. That's pretty good. No one was arranged to follow up. Like, Khans is clearing mid, Raynor is on the camp, but not useless. The main thing that I really like Skullcracker for in competitive is if you're already body blocking someone and you just stand there in auto, as soon as Skullcracker goes off, if they're trying to walk around you, you can then reposition to be body blocking them again, and they can't do anything about it. That's the main thing I love Skullcracker for, other than interrupting micro channels. If you're into like Urel or any other hero who has to like channel and have a small channeled ability and they can just constantly get disrupted, then like that's obviously an insane use of Skullcracker. And if you're into Urel, you should always be Skullcracker armored. Sitting in the bush. Don't like that Q. The reason I don't like that Q, by the way, is because there's absolutely no chance that that Q secures a kill, even if it lands. And it's okay to use Q to disrupt certain things, or to like interrupt abilities, but trying to Q someone who's mounted, so they have the 30% movement speed, and now it's on cooldown. Hate that. Don't try to Q people who are mounted. Don't try to Muradin Q people who are mounted. I almost felt like a bait by Krankle, like he knew Muradin was in the bush and he was just gonna let you like rid up to it into exact Q range and then I think if they had left Muradin stuck in there, by the way, one of them could have walked around and he would have like been hard stuck there. But Skullcracker, got a certain amount of value there. Like, let's look at that again. 1, 2. So the micro stun got followed up by the Hakadon. That's not bad. If he had lived there, because the sun's getting an insane amount of value. If he had lived there and given the axe would have done enough damage to like get the kill, then we would be having like a pretty interesting conversation.
Our towers assail the Raven.
Ooh.
Capture the altars, and we shall deal the
Super exciting right here.
Our towers assail the Raven Lord.
So jump stun. 1. Wait, where's the stun? Did he attack a different hero? Oh no, there it is. Did he only got 2 attacks off? I feel like that he should have gotten 3 off, but am I insane?
Capture the altars, and we shall deal the Raven.
Did he attack a minion? Oh no.
Towers assail.
If he had been attacking the Genji continuously, he would have interrupted the deflect. That feels so bad to look at. I think the Genji dies there if you interrupt the deflect. The deflect absorbed a fair amount of damage. So there's some interesting things, specifically around teleports. Whenever you teleport, you will instantly auto-attack anything that's in range, which is why, for instance, you can't pre-activate my FW and then E onto like a minion or something, because you'll always hit the minion, and if you like have to turn around to hit the minion, then the arc goes that way instead of that way, and you don't chain people. But jumps don't work that way. You can immediately input an attack after a jump, and it will be fine. But you do have to be like crisp about it. With teleports, there's actually nothing you can do. If your auto is available and you're in auto range after a teleport, you will auto things. I'll let that play without paying attention. I mean, no real value there. We're not. I will say we are not seeing my favorite use case. Got the jump. Such a shitty matchup. EDZ Murden is such a shitty matchup because like, if you're a Murden and your jump gets caught by the W, EDCW, you should just be dead.
Yes, let the altars rise.
Light Bomb's still being on cooldown means that it wasn't used as a Murden's not being used as a Light Bomb delivery system.
This round is mine.
I don't know what that is.
Be careful out there.
You're also playing Envision a lot, which you obviously, if you're playing Envision, you can't be a Light Bomb delivery system. You have to be jumping from out of vision, so someone else has to be giving vision, which they can do with Plane. So like Plane and Hanzo Arrow have to be giving vision while Murden's is out of vision. When these fights are potentially going to be trying to happen.
Another altar, another bat.
12:30. So that same situation with the camp is going to happen again because there's a question about it.
The altar.
So let's do it. Let's do a check-in. We've been looking at the given the axe value, and it's been moderate to say the least. But to be fair, the other talents like one of them would have done a little bit more damage. So we've done 685 bonus damage from Skullcracker, which is not like 0 damage. There was definitely a situation where it would have gotten like a lot of value, but then didn't. But that was like a control issue, not a talent issue. Given the axe would have done slightly more damage, but I don't think it would have done more damage in the sense that it would have secured like a kill or anything. And we haven't. I think we literally have not actually E'd onto someone. So E would have done literally nothing. Now, would the player's behavior have changed if he took E7? I would hope so. But he also hasn't had a lot of opportunities to like do anything super useful. Good example of what Beelzebub was talking about right there, where he tries to Q the EDC, but the knockback actually, it doesn't interrupt the Q, but it like makes it so the Q just can't hit. Because you create the space, and then you dodge. I don't like this was such a common matchup in HCC that almost every aspect of it should be very well understood. And like the numbers have changed, but the abilities haven't. So good example, by the way, just knocking away the EC. Raynor it doesn't really have anything to be afraid of. Absolutely useless light bomb.
The altars are rising from the mists.
So when we checked in before, it had done 600 something damage. This whole fight, it's done like not quite 200 damage. Again, we haven't actually eat on to anyone, so the other's level 7. Wouldn't have done much.
Thank you kindly.
Yeah. I think Soulcracker has gotten very marginal value this game, but yeah, I don't think the other level 7s would have gotten a ton of value either. Like, there are definitely heroes where I really like Soulcracker. There's situations where, like, again, the body blocking thing is the hugest thing. If there's a hero you can body block, and it's really hard for them to deal with being body blocked, Skullcracker just gives insane value. Because you can consistently keep them body blocked by autoing them without having to worry about losing damage from trying to maintain the body block. Because the Microstone gives you enough time to reposition. And you can just stand there and auto them and they can't do anything. Like if Twice had been ganking Blaze after level 7, yeah, but yeah. But then, I mean, ganking the offlaner when you have a Dahaka is like minimizing the value of the Dahaka a little bit.
Show the raven.
We haven't seen a situation where the little bit of extra damage from giving the axe would have been particularly meaningful. We are going to swap for a second here. So this question is very specific, and it's the following. If Dahaka had never died, would he get the camp? So the change to Feeding Frenzy, basic attacks reduce your axe cooldown by 1.5 seconds. Every death reduces his cooldown reduction by 20 seconds up to 3 times. So he's died twice. So his cooldown reduction is 1.25 seconds. No, he said once then. So he does what?
Hero. Or that leads to the battleground center. Use it well.
So he gets an extra tongue here, pretty much.
Oh, my heroes shall have this gift as well.
That thing at the start where he did not, where I think he was trying to group the camp and failed, lost him like at least 2 autos, maybe 3. So that's like probably more important. Okay, if he takes the camp correctly, he gets the camp and has nothing to do with the camp attacks.
You require a talent.
I can murder.
Soon, the altars will be ours.
Let's see. Oh? Well, I mean, the Microstone honestly may have let the arrow land. You can't be shooting arrows like that, by the way. Like this bothers me, maybe more than anything else about Hanzo and competitive. So this is Blue's vision.
You better hurry. The altars rise again.
This is Blue's vision. Should be. Walks up to the menu when he's completely vision and shoots the arrow. Like Brightwing pre-cleanses it reactively, so even if it had hit, it wouldn't have actually hit. If you're going to fire Hanzo arrow, ideally you fire it from completely out of vision, but then also the path of travel also has no vision, so you like ideally you're firing it over walls and stuff. It is better just not to fire it than to fire a Hanzo arrow that is easily going to be dodged. But if that Hanzo arrow had been aimed at the ETC, the Skullcracker would have actually caused the arrow to land. I really don't like that. Muradin going back to try to peel the Genji. The Genji doesn't have to be peeled. Everyone back there is fine.
The altars
He should have absolutely stayed on the ETC.
before the Raven Lord's pawns. A good kill.
The ETC would have died regardless, looks like, so it doesn't matter either way. We are jumping out.
Fire the towers!
One to the tally.
Did Skullcracker do anything there? Did the E land on the Junkrat? Okay, the E landed on the Brightwing, so Brightwing would be slowed right here. And Junkrat dies no matter what you go there. Skullcracker value. How much health did Brightwing live with? In the end. He got Skullcracker twice, I believe. Her lowest is 232. So Skullcracker does 90% bonus damage. Attacking heroes under gives 50% for 3 seconds. So this did 180% bonus auto damage. This would have been 6 autos, so it would have been 300% bonus damage. The Brightwing dice. If this is given the axe over Skullcracker, Brightwing dice. I believe. The numbers are really close. And Skullcracker didn't really interrupt anything. Maybe Brightwing, if it's E7, maybe the fact that the E was onto Brightwing would have caused a Brightwing to take damage from something else, right? Because she would have been slowed. That's harder to evaluate because there would be other damage. Other heroes would have had to decide to prioritize her. I mean,
The altars rise again.
Be right there.
ooh, that hurt to look at.
Be right there.
So this is interesting because I feel like they're doing the thought process of moving to get the double block is great, assuming Blaze wants to go that way. But like, why would Blaze want to go that way instead of just going down? Like, is there anything better about going to the left than just going down? Like, I guess they don't actually know where his team is, but I would assume down is better than left there.
Heroes slain. The altars have risen. Activate them now.
Giving the axe was totally irrelevant.
Team has
There, though?
destroyed
Like, it
the
doesn't-
fort.
Didn't matter either way. Kurgan is dead, so we can fast forward a little bit.
The altar.
Bam! We've lost the fort. Always thank your heel.
The altars stand ready. Cap.
Oppose the Raven Lord and suffer.
Didn't even died so fast he didn't even get. Wait, no, he's still alive. Right? Okay, that time he died. I thought the other death was him. So, 2,000 bonus damage from giving the axe. Not an insane amount, particularly. It's the leech. I think there somewhere in here there's an extra. I think there's a stun duration. Only use rewind once. I guess there's not. I thought there used to be a increased stun duration from Give Him the Axe specifically. Oh, maybe it's under the generic stats tab, because this is something that there are things in the replay that Blizzard already tracks that aren't shown in like the score screen. So let's go under generic stats. And stun time is one of them. I guess it's not there. I really thought there was a increased stun duration from Give Him the Axe just in there generically. But I guess I'm misremembering. So people are getting a little bit of value out of Give Him the Axe. I do think it comes down to individual drafts when Give Him the Axe is really, really good. I don't think Give Him the Axe is particularly good here. The slow is really good into relatively low mobility heroes, or heroes that like have one movement ability, because then as soon as they move their ability, you jump on them and they're slowed, and it's really hard for them. Particularly for AA heroes, like if your backline is AA heroes, I always feel like slows are much more important than otherwise, because AA heroes are constantly stutter stepping, and it's easier to AA. Like one of the reasons that move speed talents are so meta for every single AA hero is it just makes stutter stepping and kiting and going in and going out, like that whole dance, easier. That dance is also easier if the thing you're hitting is slowed, right? Because it's essentially the reverse. Like you going faster, them going slower is in many ways the same as you going faster. And they have Hanzo Raynor as a backline, so I think E7 would have been pretty good here. I really like the body block use case. We did not see that here at all, like literally at all. So yeah, and we saw one instance where Give Him the Axe I think would have resulted in an additional kill if everything else had been equal. So Give Him the Axe is giving like a fair, or a Skullcracker's giving like a fair amount of value, but it would give more value into other heroes, right? If we'd seen it interrupt that that one Genji deflect, that would have been really sweet. I do think Genji would have died, but that was a control problem, not a talent problem. And I think if we looked at the other games where Give Him the Axe was picked, we would see something like fairly similar going on, where it's just if it has a good matchup, it's getting a lot of value. If it doesn't have good matchups, then it's just like it's an okay talent. It does a little bit of extra damage. It's fine. Hopefully you guys are enjoying me being extremely thorough. In answering these questions. Exodia versus Rip. So I think so. There's a couple of different questions. Answer for the next set, and we might end up just looking at the draft for one and then actually going over the game for the other. So it's Exodia stack versus Rip. So this is a game. What's the Lucio's best level 10 for this game is the first question. And I think high five here is really hard. Like, I think high five into Garrosh is extremely difficult because a good Garrosh player is going to throw taunt you. And a really good Garrosh player is going to take the 20, Titanic Might. And if he catches you in the animation of high five before you've actually connected and throws you, it does cancel high five, and then you're throw taunted in midair with whoever you were trying to save, and you're dead. There's no possibility you live through that situation. That actually happened in this game, I believe, once plus 20. So, yeah. The Lucio Garrosh matchup is really cemented around Lucio being able to boop Garrosh away so that no one gets close in the first. Like, Garrosh doesn't get close in the first place. if someone has already been thrown, then the only way you can save them is sound barrier. And the way that works is you have to not get thrown yourself, see the throw, speed in, start casting sound barrier, and the sound barrier like goes off in time. And then hopefully you can turn around and sort of win the fight. I don't know if their comp can actually win the fight. Is the thing. Like I guess Clone Greymane. Clone Greymane can do it. Clone Greymane is a lot of damage, and Aegis is not necessarily gonna make the save. I would have preferred to see Sound Barrier here over High Five. The other consideration I often have for that is how good is Mixing Fire, because if you really need an anti heal and your comp doesn't otherwise have one, then you're almost pressured to go High Five specifically for Mixing Fire, as opposed to the fact that it's a cleanse. But yeah, I would have preferred to see Sound Barrier this game, and I'm like 70-30 Sound Barrier versus High Five in competitive. Frequently, it comes down to the meta. Sometimes it's 30-70. Because it does matter, the matchups and the exact drafts of what's meta matter. So like if Garrosh isn't very meta, or any other like just general displacements, like High Five's not going to save you from a Stitches comp in a lot of cases, right? It's just that it's not how it's going to work. But High Five will save you from a Bile Stitches comp as opposed to like a Gorge Stitches comp. So it just depends on the matchups. Which is why I don't like it when people always pick the same talents. Like now, specifically for this game, the question how impactful is Imposing Presence was asked. And Imposing Presence, I reviewed this replay. Imposing Presence reduced like almost 3,000 damage in one fight. This game specifically, because it works on summons. So it slows down the armor shred from Duskwing, which means that like you're taking less damage from everything because your armor isn't going down as quickly. And it's 2 AA heroes. So like as long as Muradin puts himself in front and tries to like if he gets Imposing Presence off, and there's actually a throw this game where Garrosh threw Muradin like into his whole team and he got like a 4-man Imposing Presence. It just did so much damage reduction. Is actually like a completely insane amount. And they still lost. But it wasn't because of the 16 talent choices. But people had some interesting questions about the other game. No, they didn't. It wasn't the Sky Temple game. So there are two games where Krenko was playing Muradin and took Imposing Presence. And this was the other one. And in both games, it just did an absolute enormous amount of damage reduction. Specifically into the Rainer, because of the way Imposing Presence works with summons. The fact that it actually works against summons is quite important, actually, in the matchup, especially post 20. But I thought so a bunch of people asked questions about the Sky Temple game specifically. So we are going to watch the Sky Temple game, but I guess I'll take my word for it that Imposing Presence was really good. They literally had a fight where I swear to God it reduced like at least 3,000 damage to the Muradin. It might have been more to everyone else. Because Muradin was not the only person getting off it. Executive Stack versus Sky Temple.
I would prepare. The temple opens in 1.
Interesting game. Wright's comp has like infinite sustain. You have a manaless hero, you have 2 manaless heroes, or if you have Cameron out of mana, but like Garrosh isn't really going to run out of mana. Versus a comp that is a little bit strange. Like a noob hammer is not great. We do see Benny taking Beetle build, which I actually like because Beetle build is the best push build by like a good margin. As long as Hammer is free hitting buildings in the opposite lane from Zarya, and Zarya did not go Q build. One of the things that we've seen in competitive quite a bit is actually going full Q build on Zarya into Hammer specifically and like poking out the Hammer. So I feel like Exodia ideally wants to trade the fact that they push almost as well, but they have a global in the form of Falstad versus the Vikings. And like the first temple phase, they want to trade temples. They want to make sure they get 1 full temple. And I feel like Red should be pushing like quite a bit. And whenever you are push comp on Sky Temple, I feel like you want to start bottom. So hopefully we do see that happening. Splitting the tower damage here is really weird. Like, finish the tower so your wave lives longer. Zarya, when she's actively pushing like this and is not afraid of like death, should be pocketing herself either here or here and angling so that her AA is hitting both towers and the gate. You can do that. It is the most efficient way to be pushing. Steal whoever is opsing this is camera work. Hammer is okay defensively into push comps like this because she can outrange them, but it's also like Hammer can't rotate. So if the enemy team is like, "Oh, you're defending bottom as Hammer, we're just going to go mid." "Oh, you're defending mid as Hammer, oh, we're just going." You end up playing Ring Around the Rosie in a really pathetic sort of way. Like, it's not. Also, Zarya comps have extremely limited mobility as a rule, and trading forts is one of the best ways to pick apart Zarya comps. So letting them get if you can trade forts, and then try to set up a situation where you can like chase them down the lane, then maybe you can get a pick like that. It's actually more likely. It is a little bit rough on Sky Temple because ideally they're gonna get the fort and then go to a different lane. They're not gonna like keep pushing bottom. But it's a trade.
Blue team has destroyed.
I do think Hogger should have just gone and done Bruisers at 1 minute. Having a hero who can solo Bruisers very safely and then not immediately using that advantage is not great. You're not min-maxing the effectiveness of the heroes at that point. Really good seal in the siege. They have the double siege camp bottom. Dino should be using the camp to freeze here to deny the soak. Like keep that. Use the siege to keep the wave cemented on the bridge. They're not actively pushing with it. They can actually miss that entire wave soak. And you can see Sven's worried about that because he has a Viking on there, and they're actually actively trying to gank the Viking. This I don't know. It's interesting to me when I'm locked into a Zerber's camera and I'm like, this is literally the most important thing that's happening on the map, and they're like up here, and I'm just like, why? That's Hammer clearing a wave. Whether or not Sven keeps his Viking alive to get this wave of experience is actually the most important thing happening on the map.
Blue team draws first blood.
I really want Dino to just skip the wave for us here. See, he's actively killing the camp. I want him to be actively killing the wave.
Heroes.
I wanted that W to be on the catapult. See, he's killed the camp first. If a team takes a camp and then abandons the lane, and you aren't going to be rotating or are a global, kill the wave, not the camp, and let the camp clear the wave, and then that will result in an experience differential. So even though they're ahead in experience, it's because they have a little bit more hero experience. But you can see like they're down a full wave. They have a lot more work experience, 600. And like structure experience is actually even, and passive experience is nearly even. Like they're ahead mostly because of the hero kill and the mercenary experience. They could actually, like if the camp stayed here and cleared like did another wave, Exodia stack would be caught back up in experience. And if they missed another wave after that, which they could, like if you keep the camp dead or keep the camp actively alive, would be. Here I want Augur to push. I want a noob to just take the temple. The beetles will eventually push. You can see Dan was thinking about like pushing and rotating. But this should end up being a fort trade.
Red team has crushed the fort.
As long as they get all of the temple. They get bullied off, though. They should still be able to get the fort.
Hero slain. My temple's power.
They really don't have a comp where they can actively fight this death ball. At least early on. Oh, well, they get the wall stun.
Slain. Blue team has crushed a fort. Hero slain. Hero slain.
They point out that red hit 10 first. That was like, again, look at the experience differentials. If one more wave of soak had been missed.
The light of the sun grows within the
Little bits of experience can
Soon they
have a
shall
dramatic effect
rise.
depending on when they happen. To change your breakpoint for when like a level happens.
Guardians. Hero slain.
It's actually kind of relevant to the prior question, right, about sound barrier versus, like yeah, you can't. If you get thrown as Lucio by the Garrosh, you're just dead no matter which ult you picked. But imagine like the Hogger had gotten thrown, and this taunt thing had happened, and Lucio had been like chilling, like here. Then he could have activated sound barrier, gone in, and like Hogger would have lived, right? But
Hero.
so. Unfortunately, false status flying in.
Red team has destroyed a fort.
Healer is literally the worst thing to lose at the start of a fight because now everyone, like, Benny's a little bit low, but he's not going to get topped off because he doesn't have self-healing. He'll have a little bit of self-healing. Oh, does he? No, he has a little bit. Yeah, he doesn't have, he didn't go beatable. He didn't go fully beatable. Literally going to get run down
Heroes.
by Eric.
Hero.
Staying when your healer died, very questionable.
Slain.
I think they really needed to immediately leave. Yasuo getting caught was highly problematic there. Yasuo's a very aggressive Lucio player in general, and normally he gets away with it because he just has really, really good situational awareness. So even though he's aggressive, he usually never gets caught doing anything. But again, there's some matchups where you literally just can never go around a corner you can't see the other side of if you're wall riding, or you'll just die. And if you don't, and it doesn't matter. It only matters if you're against someone who can push their buttons. It doesn't matter how good they are. It only matters like can they literally just push their buttons. And if the answer is yes, then very tough.
So the light fades from my temple.
And one thing I tell people when I'm coaching a lot is that it's very hard to adjust your expectations for level of play if you're not constantly respecting your opponents. Like, if you play SL all day and you're out playing mid-GM, low Masters players in a matchup that is supposed to be, like, unfavorable, and then you're like, well, the matchup is clearly favored for me. and then you go against someone who understands the matchup, and you just get wrecked when you're scrimming. You have to be able to adjust. Oh, I can't do that. Many examples of that in my coaching history. Most recent, which is I think Funds. Funds was dumpstering random Dahaka players as Illidan in the offlane matchup, and I'm like, Dahaka's supposed to win that. And he's like, I don't believe you. And then he played against Liam once, and he was like, I believe you now.
Heroes.
I mean, a bad Illidan will beat a bad Dahaka, but a good Dahaka, like, literally can't lose the Illidan, can't lose the matchup. It's not possible. There's literally nothing Illidan can do if the Dahaka player is actually good. Well, not even good. They just need to understand the matchup. Like, you don't even need to be that good to do the one thing that is necessary to make the matchup completely one-sided. But not nice. Illidan has two buttons that are really important for him to be able to use in the matchup. One of them is W, because it increases his damage. And the other is Q. If Illidan has not W'd, he's losing the matchup anyway. Illidan needs the bonus damage from W, particularly, and the talent triggers. The animation lock for W is long enough that Dahaka can literally always land on you. So if you W, like, the enemy wave, you're getting tongued. 100% of the time. So you can't W. But if you can't W, you're already losing the matchup. If you Q something, like if you Q the Dahaka, he should just be able to tongue behind him. You're dead. Rich, who some people would argue is the best player ever in HOTS. I don't know if I would go that far, but very, very insane player. Lost this matchup of Illidan versus Dahaka to a random no-name Chinese player at a LAN event. He actually just straight up died in the 1v1. Best player of all time. Random Chinese player that no one knew the name of. But in the Illidan Dahaka matchup, they buffed Illidan's ceiling. Yeah, they buffed Illidan's ceiling if you hit W, which you cannot do. It is so one-sided.
My magic flows through the temples. Guardians, do not let these mortals. Hero slain. Blue team has destroyed a fort.
Okay. We're fast forwarding this. So we have a question specifically about top keep. Do you think Exodius Sacrifice Ring top keep should have left and defended boss instead of going for core? So this is an interesting question because it depends on whether or not you think you can win. If you think you're Has not win the matchup after hitting one tongue, though, especially after defeating Prince. Because if you can't hit W without taking a bunch of damage, like even if you heal back to full, it puts you in a position that's like really awkward. And then eventually it scales to the point where like you get tongue into ISO into tongue, and you're just dead. Like after 10, if Dahaka lands a tongue on you, you just die. And the tongue is like very easy to land if you W, and you can't W. Like if there's literally two buttons you just can't hit in the matchup. You can't W and you can't Q, and it's very awkward. At best, the matchup is neutral if the Illidan is very careful to never W in Dahaka's tongue range, like ever. But then the matchup is neutral, right? And you're both globals, so it's like it comes down to which of you ends up being more effective in the team fight, essentially. But then the burden of execution is on Illidan, because if Illidan messes up, he loses. Whereas there's no real burden of execution on the Dahaka. So like Dahaka can tie the matchup, but Illidan can lose it, and that's a very important distinction. So the range of W is 5.5, and the missile speed is 14.4. So you're animation locked for a full half a second. So normal human reaction time is like 0.25 seconds. If you can see the Illidan W react instantly, like normal human reaction time, and throw the tongue at where the Illidan is going to be, unless he like metas out, it's gonna land. Because you can't walk far enough away, right? And you can't like Q something because Q has a slight delay on it. Like it's gonna land. If you have normal human reaction times and you just know, oh, I have to throw my Q at where he's going to be. I've never seen a competitive player not be able to pull this off once it was explained to them. It's one of those things where you have to know something, not something where it's like it's hard. Does that make sense? Back to this. Their core damage is not fantastic. You just react to the W happening. You can see it happening. Like you have to be paying attention to him. You have to be looking at the Illidan and be like, is he going to W? Is he going to W? Is he going to... Oh, he W. But there's a lot of things like that, where it's like you need to be looking at the enemy offlaner and being like, is he going to do the thing? Is he going to do the thing? Is he going to do the thing? I'd need 10 gallons of caffeine. You'd be surprised. Normally, the problem with reacting to things is essentially neurological. You have to train yourself to react to the thing. Like you have to drill it. So that your brain changes and you're not like actively thinking about it. It just happens. That's why people do drills in sports. Like there's usually a correct response to like a given play in a lot of sports games. If you just immediately do the response, you're good. When you drill it, it'll just happen. Most things in this game can be drilled. Back to this. So their comp kind of sucks at siege and core. Like Hammer is really good core damage. Q Falstead. Wait, is that Q Falstead? I'm not mixing up the icons, am I? I know.
Red team's call.
Are you Q Falstead? I don't like that. I kind of wish this was AA Falstead. This is AA Falstead. They would actually have a better chance of ending here. But you sort of ask the question, are you actually trying to end? If you're actually trying to end, it's because you think you cannot win the late game. And in that case, you're on core. This might be your best chance of ending the game. All right, you can gust people away. You can cocoon someone. In this case, it almost certainly has to be the Zarya. And you can like just try to end the game. So you don't think you can win. You're essentially in a desperate situation where you have a chance of ending the game just by going all in core. If you think that, this is a great decision. I do wish this was AA build. I actually kind of wish I noticed that earlier. And it kind of feels like they're in that position. And you can see Red Team is running it Hammer, because Hammer is the best core DPS by like a large margin. Whenever you're in the situation where someone's trying to all in core, you need to immediately run at the person who's best at doing damage to core. Everyone else needs to be protecting them. So I kind of hate that Benny E to the other side of core, because now he's like out of range of being able to help Hammer. We get a little bit of peel there. Sound barrier didn't go off. That's really bad.
Hero slay. Hero slay.
You know what? Honestly, if Exodia had just played the core all in better, I think they would have won. If Benny doesn't E, there's a core. If Yasu doesn't start out low,
Has destroyed.
they're also clumped here. Core cleaves, like core autos cleave, which is why they instantly one-shot waves when you see a wave like stacked up like this, and the core autos it just does. So when you're all in core, you really don't want to be clumped on the core ever. You want to like spread out around it. So Benny was trying to do that by eating to the other side of the core, I think. But like it would have been ideal if people just hadn't been stacked. And I guess Yasu actually has aggro, so maybe being stacked was fine. But you probably don't want your. Arguably here, Yasu should stop autoing the core and start autoing a Viking to get CDR for amp.
Hero.
He soundbared way too late.
Hero slay. Hero slay.
Did he E? Wait, did he E early? I thought it was on cooldown from before, but no.
Blue team has
No, he didn't. He reverse amped. Yeah, he reverse amped. And now he's getting autoed. Because reverse amp's hitting the Viking, and that made it so the call for help action activated, where buildings focus a hero who does damage to an enemy hero. Amping this early is just bad. You should not be amping this early because you don't. Like you need to heal everyone. Yeah. Here's correct. He starts autoing the Viking to get amp back.
hero slay. Hero slay.
Honestly, if they had played that a little bit better, the game ends.
Hero slay. Hero slay. Hero. Blue team dominated.
And I do think that is their best chance to win the game. So I don't think the call was wrong. I think they just played it badly. Which, I guess one of the questions was, is this a draft diff or was it uncharacteristically poor play from Exodia? And it's like, that is uncharacteristically poor play from Exodia. Every single one of those players is better on average than what we just saw there. Like literally all 5 of them are better than what we just saw on average. But they messed up in the 6 average. So I don't think it's a draft diff. I think that they had a reasonable chance of winning that game. But like Yasu dying here instantly at the start and then them staying was worse than Yasu dying. Like if your healer is the first thing that dies in a fight, the fight's over. Unless you can immediately get a counter kill because all the cooldowns that were used, but Rip backed up safely, stood behind their wall, waited for the cooldowns. What would I pick instead of May? Love me a May question. And I may even answer it. Thank you. I'll be here all week. Okay. No, it was the team game. Okay. So May is literally last pick here, right? It is worth noting that Krankle went for sort of what I would call an unusual build with heavy packet 1. Increases the duration of blind by 1.5 seconds. Each time Blizzard damages enemy hero, reduce the cooldown. We get Cold Front. So this is like E-build, but with Q1. I hate Avalanche. I think it's so bad. Flurry kind of gives like an Arthas-ish thing going on. Not even really. Like basically, the way Flurry works is you put it on a point, you stand on the point, you get W back sooner. That's it. Then you get to be a little bit more attack speed, which usually synergizes well with her other level 1 that gives you more healing when you auto. But that's not the level 1 that we have. And then we have Black Ice, which Black Ice is a good talent regardless of if you have any other talents. Black Ice is just generically very good. The slow no longer decaying over the duration, and it deals 300% more damage to enemies very close to me. The slow not decaying is the really important thing. The icing dealing 300% more damage is fairly marginal in most cases. It really is just about. One of the things I really love about Mei is actually full Q build. Full Q build has extremely high uptime on the blind. Where you go, and you even go like Slush Ball, and you get a little bit of push potential. And you get Fresh Powder, and you get the increased ranged. Yes, Acclamation is the talent makes the regardless. Or not Acclamation, Polar Vortex. Acclamation is the talent that makes her tankier. Acclamation is actually a talent that gives her a lot of utility in double support
If only
comps.
I'd brought something to read.
Because 20% increased additional healing to Mei is quite significant. We actually, again, we have a CCL Season 1 game of that, where Robot was playing Mei. So, Mei is really good at point fights. Mei is really good at wombo combos with Ice Wall, if you have some sort of thing to follow up the Ice Wall damage-wise. There's a really silly comp that I love, which is TAS Hanzo Mei, and you Ice Wall, and Mei follows up her own Ice Wall with Blizzard, so you get the massive stun, and Dragon Strike and Black Hole come out. And if you have Dragon Strike and Black Hole traveling around the same path, they essentially get stuck in the middle of the Black Hole, and double the middle section of Dragon Strike that does double damage. Mei was explored very thoroughly in CCL scrims. So I don't know if Mei is unexplored. We saw the Koreans playing her in the Miami LAN event very effectively as a rundown tank, where you had a different hero engaged. Like you had Hanzo arrows or a Maiev or something like that. And then you had Mei constantly slowing people as they tried to run away from that. And because of her increased movement speed and her, because of skating away, you get the movement speed and the physical armor, it became very hard to run away from those comps, which was your natural reaction to like getting Maiev pulled. You kind of want to run away. You don't want to stay there and let the Maiev Q reset you. So I think Mei is fairly thoroughly explored if you've been paying a lot of attention to every competitive tournament. I don't think I don't think most people fall into that category where they played all the different versions of Mei. But this is almost what I would call like the peel, like a weird peel version of Mei. There's like some hybrid talents, and I don't like the build. I don't like the build, period. I don't particularly like the build here because the movement speed from skating away comes at the end. And I think that only is really good when you're aggressively helping your team dive. So Maiev is a good example. Kerrigan would be a good example, where you're like Eing in, and your team's around you to where you eat in, and they're getting the movement speed bonus, and they're getting the physical armor. And here it's like maybe you're giving that to Genji. Maybe. You're never giving it to Junkrat. You might be giving it to Rhaegar. You might be giving it to Blizz. Mei is really good at fighting over points. Flurry, the size of her AoEs. Ice Wall, because it steals the point. And I guess to a degree Avalanche, although I still hate Avalanche. These are really good at fighting over points. Are you fighting over points on team? Like there's boss point. Like there's 1 point. Mei's best maps are arguably Cursed, Hanamura, and Raxus. Because you're constantly fighting over a point. In Curse's case, you're fighting over a point in the late game, right? Because usually bosses end up being the real win condition on Curse Hollow. Like those are really good maps for Tomb, you were kind of fighting over the turn-in. No, because Shrines are not fighting over the point, right? Like, I mean, I see what you're saying, where you're fighting like over a fixed area, but Mei can like win a boss point, and she can win a channel. Shrines isn't quite the same because it's a matter of the damage. And her main damage thing with Blizzard, the damage ramps up over time and you see it happening. So like if you're any sort of like auto attack hero or have some sort of AoE, you're like, well, I'm going to hit those things before Blizzard finishes. So May just helped me get some Shrine minions, not May stole a bunch of Shrine minions, right? Hanzo Key is a really good thing. Example of something it's an area damage that is really good on Shrines because you can steal last hits. Well, it matters though, right? Like if you're trying to control a hero on Shrines and you end up giving, like unless you get a kill off of that W, you might have just given the enemy team free damage. May is decent. Yeah, May has decent wave clear with the wave clear talent at 1. The main advantage I think of a ranged tank, and we saw this a little bit. You guys didn't see this, but Justing was playing main tank Blaze and Scrims in CCL Season 1 on Garden of Terror to stall channels because because Blaze Q and like the burning effect from oil is actually pretty good at stalling channels. Being a ranged tank helps you stall channels pretty safely. Like Blaze, very similar thing to the way Blaze was doing it. May has like a ranged auto. She has a very short cooldown Q. So like that's the main thing that if I'm on team, I'm looking at that and I'm like, oh, maybe that's good. But is Blaze the best tank here? Is a very different question. Or is May the best tank here? And it's like, what is May doing? Like I think in order to draft May, you need to have a rundown comp the way the Koreans demonstrated, which I'm like Junkrat Genji is okay rundown, like because Riptire is essentially another Genji in fights where it's a dive hero essentially, or you're playing for point control, or maybe you're playing for like walling, so you're like a heavy poke comp. I just don't see what May is doing here specifically, other than blinding the Rainer. And maybe blinding Rainer is good, but in that case, why aren't you like full Q build so you get the double charge at 16? And they wanted a tank, so Joe was picked. Varian was banned. So literally every tank was available. Except for Joe and Varian. So like, would I have picked May here when all of that is available? Probably not. Like, I don't... yeah, Tyrael was available. Tyrael is a little bit awkward into Rainer, but it has a good matchup into the Joe. Main tank Leo is something I would pick here personally. Diablo is... I mean, yeah. You want to pick Diablo into Rainer? I don't know about picking Diablo into Rainer. Like Diablo's, except for Rainer, Diablo's fine here. Certainly, if the mouth gets out of position, you can punish the mouth. But Rainer is really annoying. Like a good Rainer is really annoying to play into as Diablo. Like literally, last time Cascom was playing SL and was like ranking up, every time he saw a Diablo, he just picked Rainer, and the Diablo was useless all game. It's a pretty difficult matchup. You could play Stitches because you already have the Junkrat. 30k played a lot of Stitches into Johanna on Tomb specifically. I definitely, and I think all of those picks are better than May. Assuming you can play them. Like some teams don't like playing passive hook comps where you're just like you're trying to hook, and if you don't get a hook, nothing happens. Like otherwise you're just clearing waves. Some teams hate playing that style. No one on 30k had a problem playing that style. Like Cattle's like, I'll do that all day. Clear waves, great. And then look for the hook. Easy. Why would Benny play that Joe build? Is he hoping Joe W sports their win con stymies opponent? Well, I mean, you always go subdue, pretty much always. Conviction is standard, bless is standard. So we're really just talking about the 1, the 13, and the 16. The 13 is hammers is a little bit worse if you're not double E, because you don't get as many resets. And Roar has a theoretical situation where it is always better in the sub 1 second burst category, specifically. They don't really have a comp that does sub 1 second kills, so that's not a good argument to be taking Roar here. So I think this still should be hammers, even if you think Loss of Hope is better. The blinds get slightly minimal value. Like you can blind Genji, maybe, but like you can blind Rhaegar Bite, I guess. But you're gonna get a lot of globes because it's Tomb. Like you should be getting 4 globes a minute, right? As a Johana on Tomb for most of the game, which means at the end of this game you should have like 60 globes or so. And then if you don't have E1, E16 is less good. From doing analysis with Spazzo's tool, I will say that even without E1, E16 is usually as good as the other ones. That's E16 is really good. Just the sheer amount that it heals. So I think I disagree with Roar here more than any of the other talents, to be honest. Laws is quite good. It's not that Joe doesn't really have any bad talents. Joe has a problem where some of her talents are so strong synergistically that if you pick one of those talents, suddenly you're picking all of them. That's the build. That's just what you're doing. Individually, arguably, she has talents at every tier except 16 where another talent is stronger, but it doesn't have the same level of synergy. So Hammers has huge synergy with E1. Hammers is arguably the best talent on level 1 anyway, assuming you're actually hitting it on cooldown. But then you're hitting it on cooldown, and hitting it on cooldown is like a huge button tax for a lot of players. I mean, I have replays of like Masquerade just literally not hitting hammers. And Masquerade's considered a very good player. But if you don't actually hit the button, then it doesn't matter how much CDR you're getting because you didn't hit the button. It's not on cooldown. And if you're not going to hit the button, Roar is literally always better. To put this in perspective, in like a 1.5 second window, if you're good at using hammers, hammers will do roughly 1/2 of an auto attack less damage than Roar did. Like the damage difference is incredibly marginal, but hammers will end up doing an average of like 20,000 siege damage throughout the course of a game if you're spamming them, which is insane considering you get it at level 13. Roar is not keeping up with that. It's just not a thing that's going to happen. So I don't really like the May pick. I think there are many better picks. You can watch the game. It did not have much of an impact. Game 4, Crystalla and Orphea have gone for different ults. So Orphea is a hero where people have like extremely strong, like the people who play Orphea have extremely strong opinions about which talents on her are good and which talents on her are bad. I think that currently her best build literally involves taking the strongest talent at every single tier and not worrying about like synergy, which is an interesting position for her to be in. So for a while, W build was by far her best build in my opinion, competitively, because of the increased mobility plus HP from her level 4. Some people hate her level 4 because it occasionally you get knocked away from a kill, essentially.
So you trust
So
me?
it's Ancestral Strength, Backbiter, Mind Devour, and like obviously these talents have some synergy because of the way her kit works, but they don't have direct synergy. Invasive Miasma. So full W build, of course, is still Ancestral Strength, Backbiter, but you go the reset for Insatiable, so you get more Ws out. That's kind of like a skirmishing build. There's only one good example of that build being played
Not in a hurry or
competitively.
anything.
And so I think a lot of people underrate that build because the one good example it was an Abathur draft. There were a lot of things that made it work very specifically. And she has received some talent changes since then. So really, the only thing I hate here is the level 4. But the question is about Crushing Jaws. So I think Crushing Jaws is fine here because it's a good follow-up for like Disc. It should be getting a fair amount of value, but it is cursed. You will be fighting over boss points, stuff like that. And in that situation, Feast can essentially put the enemy team on a timer, where if they don't win the boss like pretty instantly, they cannot win the boss as long as you have someone alive on point. And with 3 melee heroes to cycle through, you should be able to cycle through 3 evil on point. So it just depends. Do you think you're going to be fighting over bosses, or do you think you're getting disc picks? Should they upgrade it too? I don't know. I don't know about the upgrades. Elder's Conduit is completely insane in longer fights.
Are you getting
Because you get to the 30% like spell power buff and it's completely insane. If this is good though, like 50, like if this results in a kill, you get, because of the 50 armor and you get the reset, like that's also like pretty insane. And Monster Within also pretty insane. Because you just get more healing and you get more ability to spam your buttons.
By all means, take your time. I'm not in a hurry.
Elder's Conduit is definitely better in longer fights, but you can make the argument that if you're going for Crushing Jaws, you're not going for long fights, right? You're going for really fast fights where you're just trying to one-shot someone. Why wouldn't you upgrade it if that's the case? Like, but so I don't really like pairing them together. I don't know if it would have mattered too much this game specifically. Again, there were other things that came into play frequently. If you actually watch the replay, there was decision making that mattered a lot more than what talents Orphea took, essentially. Which it's something you have to be careful of. You don't want to be results driven and be like, oh, it won a game, therefore it must be good. Just like, up to 11 earlier won a game. We watched the whole replay. We added up exactly how much value the talent got, and it was like, meh. It didn't really do much. So you don't want to assume just because it won a game. And for a very similar reason, the second question is about Mind Devour. This talent was literally finished in the last team fight. And do you really want to be finishing a quest in the last team fight? And the answer is probably not. But like, you have to go look, would Insatiable or Ravenous Hunger really have done much more? And how often was Orphea close to dying and got a W off, and like this would have saved her. And Insatiable definitely isn't good without full W talents, because like you take Insatiable because of Abyssal Symbiosis getting you the shield, so you have to be consistently hitting W and getting the shield for that talent to be good. So like I don't think the 7 was bad, even though she finished it late. Obviously, finishing it earlier is better. Sometimes you finish stuff like this. At least it was finished. Yeah. But is this the other game? Yes, this was the other game where someone asked about. This is the game I was thinking of earlier, where there was another question about. So this is game 4. So we're gonna look at opposing presence again this game. I think. Hopefully this is the right game. Piercing Light is very overpicked. It is sort of the default talent that people always take, and it should not be the default. And you literally have you literally can just see if the talent is good, right? Like you have a ticker at the end, like how many times did this actually get any value? And honestly, I think this is going to be a controversial take. If Piercing Light didn't finish, it probably wasn't the pick that game. Like I think it has to consistently be hitting 2 targets, like to be good. So we're gonna look at Orphea a little bit.
Choose your talent wisely.
I come to you.
I kind of wish he hadn't moved and had stored that dash.
Something fun.
So we would have gotten a little bit of stackage there if we'd gone the other 7, but not an insane amount.
Shall we see who?
A little bit of stackage there, but again, not an insane amount. So here, Backbiter would have been actively discouraging us, right? Because we would have gone away there. But we ended up immediately dashing back from the queue anyway, so would it actually have mattered?
Well done.
I think that kill happens even if we're Backbiter. Because I think we could have. You can still back. You can queue. You're still in range to queue someone when you get the dash back from Backbiter. Also, Backbiter would have allowed this to. If we just got a little closer, we could have stood right here. Just put my monitor, losing it right there, and Backbiter into the wall. We wouldn't actually have lost that much range. But we're pretty active. I mean, they win this fight.
Ah, much better.
Jaws didn't really do anything there. I think that kill happens no matter what. We don't have Jaws here now. But again, I don't think it matters. I think that kill happens no matter what.
Let their fortifications fall before me.
Gather tribute or face me.
Yeah, my Orphea is a pretty good combo. I think Orphea's an interesting position because I think she has a lot of counters. Like, Orphea is almost unplayable into a really good Lucio player who's just constantly booping you during your casts. But if you get her in the right draft, it's like very hard to deal with her. I like that they give up into the Horus here. They're just like, okay, we're gonna wait out the duration of Horus.
Choose a challenge. It is your right.
Worth noting that one of the reasons I think Invasive Miasma is so good at level 13 is because it's also a really good PvE talent. Like, you hit D, it's on a 10-second cooldown, it helps you clear
Bring the
waves.
siege to this fort.
That's in addition to the damage it gives you in fights. We're getting a little bit of E-stackage here. So far, it doesn't look like either of the other 7s would have been, like, better.
I grow tired of your petty squabbling.
And
Gather tribute.
there hasn't really been an insane feast opportunity,
I'm off to this incredible.
because we're not really fighting over boss points. Base check the bush. Get to live, so.
You're killing.
So there's a situation where I think the other level 4 would have saved.
I'm heading over here.
To be fair, like, base check the bush and lived already. Actually, the other level 7 would have won. No, we didn't W. We didn't W the target that died, so we wouldn't have gotten the heal.
You're killing.
But the extra, what's our overkill? 31? Still in a pretty bad position, though, and everything's on cooldown. Might have died anyway, even with the 15% extra health. Because I don't think that W actually landed on anyone. Did the W hit the Garrosh? Because the W hits the Garrosh. Yeah. No, it didn't hit the Garrosh, and it didn't hit the Ringer. And everyone else got in the bunker.
You're killing.
So the knockback, if that W would hit someone and gotten the knockback and the extra health, then would have lived. But
Killing spree.
You have won my favor, heroes.
fast forward to Orphea being alive. And we have to keep a careful eye on fights because we're going to look at Muradin's 16 talent as well. Muradin jump got caught. Meridian hasn't. Yeah, he dies second.
Structure, and they will find no peace.
Pulse weren't
The
used.
curse ends.
I'm heading over here.
They have a talent advantage, and they're using it to get their camps. I kind of wish they were stealing like enemy bruisers here or something. They are checking them at least.
We cannot be stopped.
They might not have been trying to get enemy bruisers. They're trading bosses.
Gather tribute or face my
Trading bosses here is really good because this gets a keep, but the other boss gets just gets a forward. Is it better to fight for the trip or to push?
Fight alone.
Playing in the rain. I mean, the Sunder. Oh my god, Rainier lived for a lot longer than I thought he would there.
Heading over here.
Pringle jumps in and immediately uses Imposing Presence to get the slow. Just for the pick. The slow actually helps Orphea, by the way, because her level 1. It doesn't matter who like slows or stuns the target. It just matters that they are stunned, silence, or slows. Doesn't matter who slows them, it just matters that they are slowed. So.
Hand of justice. Know your embrace.
God, paint them red, heal for so much right there. Good peel. By the garage, throwing away. Again, good peel by the garage, dies for it. Yeah, the level 7s, like, they just don't.
Double kill.
Oh, you need me now.
If not, your fortification's destruction.
I feel like they're trying to walk through the base to top, and I just don't know if that's a viable thing to be doing.
Take their keeps away. Bring ruin upon them.
Trip for free. I really want to see the 20, because I really want to see if the armor shred would have.
Shall we see who
So they're pushing bottom.
Wisely.
Did Sven call for a boss? So again, we would have gotten a few stacks there. We wouldn't be at an insane number of stacks this game. We've gotten the stacking 7. Disc misses. So we're not going to get a pick off of that. Why are we leaving? Like, you should be using 20 to get an advantage. Getting the keep would be like a pretty big advantage. We never had a point fight. Jaws missed.
gather tribute? Earn my
Cicada has gotten 0 value because we haven't really had like an extended fight where it could get stacked up and actually do anything.
my favor is yours, heroes.
4 stacks of the 20. 5. Pretty good. This actually, we're gonna go back in a second and talk about how much that bothered me. Why are we not jawsing the disc? Why are we not comboing these things together? Okay, well, the Jaws 20 is awful if you don't actually hit Jaws, because you have to. But I feel like Disc and Jaws should have been comboed together like every single time. Disc hit someone.
Thanks for the.
We're gonna go back. It's one of those times where Imposing Presence did far more than you would have thought. Was like possible. If I'm being honest. So look at the Muradin. Rainer's already attack speed slowed from the passive part. Jump gets caught. Crankle gets thrown in. Immediately Imposing Presence. Then Imposing Presence hits Thrall and Rainer. Right. So you go to the generic stats tab. So Rainer has 26,348 damage. Physical damage dealt to heroes. Thrall has 7,695. Actually, I can just screenshot that whole thing. I guess I can put this in Paint. Real production value here. We use Paint. So now we have a reference for those numbers. Rewinds, W's, gets a little bit of attack speed slow, stuns, walks out. It has expired. Paint is nice and light, to be honest. So over the duration of that, Thrall did 500 attack damage, Anna did 200, Blazeline did 100, Rainer did 300, and they were attack speed slowed by 50%. So it's not exactly 1-to-1 because there's like attack speed steroids from like giving the pepper, does a little more damage, which arguably favors attack speed slows because then you have less procs of that coming out. So that in that very, very, very brief window, assuming that the 50% attack speed slow naively actually reduced damage by 50%. In some cases, it might be slightly more, slightly less, depending on heroes and how it interacts with their kits. That saved him over 1,000 damage. Again, sort of naively. And he got thrown in, he rebounded and jumped out. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And it had already saved him a little bit of damage from the passive effect happening. Also, the blame, boss, the blame. Oh, is the plane dead? Oh, the plane's dead right now.
That key is gone.
Was that a misclick on Jaws? It feels like it was not. Or was it self-peel? It feels like it was not near anything.
I come to your aid.
And so the curse ends.
Again, another really good Imposing Presence.
And so the curse ends.
Gets slowed. Gets the Imposing onto Rainer. Doesn't get autoed very much because of the stun, so it actually doesn't end up doing a terribly large amount of anything. Jaws is still in cooldown. I don't think the other Orphea level 7's really doing anything. We are getting some passive damage reduction here from the passive on Imposing Presence, where it slows them by 20% attack speed. Bear in mind that is a thing that exists. And then
Double kill. Triple kill.
use it just for the slow there. I don't think that really mattered. I think the Rainer was that other way, getting stuck in the pocket like that. But
All you have killed, I know.
yeah, we didn't get any kills with Jaws. So if we didn't get any kills with Jaws, it wouldn't have mattered, really. Staccato only got to 7 stacks? Yeah, no. So I think Jaws is fine there if you're actually landing the Jaws. Like you need some. Jaws is not an initiator. You need some sort of combo that guarantees that Jaws lands. If you have some sort of combo that guarantees that Jaws lands, then the upgrade, like theoretically, the upgrade should be completely insane. Whether that's like a massive slow, like Rhaegar Totem should do it, right? Obviously, stuns work. Disc should work. If you have a good, if you have a comp where you can catch 2 or 3 people in cage, if you have like VP Zera, that should work. And if you have that, then shouldn't the upgrade be completely insane? Because like you're guaranteeing that they're going to one shot even through healing at that point with the minus 50 armor. But if you don't have something that really is like, yes, this is absolutely going to work, I think you just go Feast. Because Feast gives you more sustain. And I think Orphea dying is a huge problem. Jaws also Telegraph Stun, which isn't great. Well, I mean, it's a Telegraph Stun no matter what. Right? It's not just Anna's Sun Cleanse, it's everything. We've been going actually 3 hours. I hate this game mostly because if you're listening to Hasu's perspective, they go over this game in like the replay afterwards, and they're just arguing constantly about what was the correct thing to be doing. If you have a team where no one was on the same page about what should be happening, and the most relevant thing that was brought up, I think, was brought up by Hasu, which is that Dino had a very specific way he wanted the strat to be played. Dino was on Phoenix. Phoenix is the lane anchor. He's away from the 3-man. That means that Dino can't tell people how he wants the 3-man to be moving around because he can't see it all the time. He has a job that puts him away from that situation. If you have a really specific idea of how you want a map or a comp to be played, it's really hard as the float or the off lane to call it. So you have to thoroughly explain how you want it to work to your team so that they can execute it. If they don't intuitively understand it, you have a problem. You can't just like make up that thing up. That's the sort of thing you have to work out in scrims, right? So everyone's on the same page. You can't do it in a live game, or it'll just look horrible. And this game looked horrible. So a lot of people ask questions about this game, and I don't want to look at the answers. I just don't want to look at them because I don't think it mattered. One team was trying to do something where they weren't executing together, and it didn't work. So. But I will briefly go over them. You think Flare could be useful? I mean, mostly for Garrosh, not Smurro. Flare is always useful. It's just a question of can you give up the wave clear? I think your job is mostly to anchor one lane as Rexxar. So yes, you can theoretically give up the wave clear, and it's not that big a deal. Like Vision is never a bad thing. Flare has 100% uptime. Does Flare help you not get flanked? Yeah, a little bit, but theoretically, Muradin and Lucio should be doing that anyway. So I don't know if it helps that much in this specific context. It's not like you're watching. It's not like Tomb where the 100% of the time is really useful for watching a turn in, or like Dragon Strider where 100% of the time is usually really useful for seeing if people rotating through try. Right. This is a 2-lane map where you have 2 heroes who should literally always be trying to control Vision in your team. Should this have been Soundbearer? We've gone over the Garrosh Lucio matchup extensively at this point. Would E-Build Alarak be stronger? So E-Build Alarak, the main thing it does in competitive is it's less vulnerable to dying because losing sadism reduces E-Build's power less than other builds. It also puts you in a situation where you don't have to combo W and Q together. So if you can W things independently, it's insane. Gen G, who's the only team to really do very well with Alarak competitively, did draft Alarak Garrosh, and one of the things they would do when not comboing W and Q together was Rich would W people into Garrosh's range so Garrosh could then throw them. It essentially worked as a reverse gap closer for the Garrosh. It's really awkward to do that with Q build because you have to W them in, Garrosh has to throw them, and then you have to walk to where Garrosh threw them and then cue them for the silence. It's not impossible, but it is awkward. You don't really have that issue with E-Build, because like all you need to do is position so that something is behind the E target from your perspective so that you can E them. And then you're like the second or third follow-up CC to whatever the actual follow-up CC is to Garrosh through. So I do think E-Build would have been better there, but it doesn't matter. Strong and independent Alaric build. It's actually not. I think AA and Q-Build are both actually more independent builds. I think E-Build really depends on your team playing around it with you correctly. I think in a sense, E-Build is like the hyper carry build where you really are depending on your team to do things a certain way, as most hyper carries do. There are a lot of meta questions, which is like, what was I asked that I wanted to answer? I actually just answered a lot of things that I wanted to go over that bothered me in the replays that were like, yeah, kind of. How impactful has Rainer been? I'm not going to answer this question until the end of the tournament. I'm saving that question for the end of the tournament. It will be in the doc every week, and I will just keep skipping it. Did Burn Notice lose or get any kills? If someone wants to ask this question, I would really prefer that they asked it about a specific game. And I will say, anytime you ask me this question, I want a game where everyone got into bunker. Like everyone in range. If people can get into bunker and don't, bunker 20 is useless. It's not good enough if only Blaze is in the bunker. It has to be, I would minimum say like 3 people have to get in the bunker. Like you have to be like, and people should get in the bunker. They should get in, get out for the armor. Even normal bunker, that should be the case. If you see a Blaze game that like 2 or 3 bunkers are cast plus 20 and only Blazes in them, Burn Notice is automatically better. It really has to be a situation where multiple people are getting into the bunker. I'm not answering this question about Blisco. It's he's been known for their Ariel since HGC. What is some things they do that stand out to you? I'm not answering this question at the end of the tournament because I've only seen him play a couple games so far. And most of the thing that stands out to me is how passive he is on Lucio, which is not... And Q16 versus Moonlit Mouth, again, I'd prefer people ask us about a specific game so we can actually look at it, the stats and break it down. I will probably end up picking I'll pay attention from here on out. I'll probably end up picking a game if no one asks a specific question. If you had to guess how many tournament players are using a PED, that is a performance-enhancing drug. I can tell you from articles I've read about this that in other esports, it's quite possible, like in the Counter-Strike scene, over 50% of players are using like Adderall. From my experience teaching dance at a university briefly, a lot of grad students were on Adderall for writing papers, stuff like that. Caffeine is technically a PED. One of the things about using caffeine as a PED is that you have to like not be using it most of the time. You can't drink caffeine every day and expect to have it like a dramatic effect on you. So you don't drink coffee, don't drink tea, whatever at all. No caffeine. And then like on the day of a match, like an hour before the match starts, you drink some caffeine. If we're counting caffeine and people use caffeine in sports and professional gaming, then probably a lot of people run a PED. Was it effective? Were they doing the thing where they didn't drink caffeine and then only drink caffeine the day of? Probably not. I imagine some people are on Adderall. Just like, well, we were talking about over 40. How many teams are there? How many teams are we looking at? In a group of people this large, I assume some of them have prescription drugs that help with focus, which means they would have if there were any sort of regulations, they would have a therapeutic use exemption, a TUE, which basically means, yeah, but they need it for their health, so we can't take it away from them. There's sort of an arms race with PEDs in professional sports where it has to actually, every PED has to be specifically banned. It has to be on a list. And if a new drug comes out, you can use that new drug until it goes on the list. So people are constantly trying to think of, like, research new drugs that could help them. perform better. And there have been a lot of interesting ones. Blood doping was really big in cycling for a little bit, which is where you take your own blood out of your own body, and then you have it put back in later. Like it's refrigerated and preserved, and you have it put back in like the day of the race. Beta blockers for shooting. Beta blockers will make it so that your respiration and heart rates are easier to keep at a very low level. Very important for pistol shooting. There have been studies that it substantially helps increase like your accuracy as a pistol shooter. And the interesting thing is, the better you already were, the more effective it was at helping you, which is a crazy thing to think. But like, if someone has a heart condition, they might need to be on a beta blocker, and that also automatically gives them an advantage as a shooter, and there's like nothing you can do about it. So yeah, how many people do I think were specifically abusing a drug to be better at HOTS? I doubt most people are doing that. But for tournaments with for esports, for games that have esports where the tournament prizes are like over $200,000, something like that, my answer is probably at least half of them, if not more, if not literally all of them. And there were people who had prescriptions for Adderall and stuff in HGC who were definitely like not taking it during the week and then taking it on game day so that the effect was enhanced. Okay, one more game. This one does desync, and it is also a specific question that would be useful, that would be much easier to answer with Spazzo's tools. But it's a question I want to answer, so we're going to suffer through using normal things. But first thing I want to explain is how Tassadar works. Because if you don't know how Tassadar works, then this whole thing is real sketchy.
Choose a talent. Choose a talent.
So,
Choose a talent.
Tassadar W. Create a sonic storm at the target location for 3 seconds. While in the storm, enemies take 83 damage every half second, increasing by 20% for each consecutive instance of damage, up to 100%. So we're gonna set the game speed to slow. And we're gonna just cast W1. So we get 83 damage, 100 damage, 117 damage, 133 damage, 150 damage, 167 damage, then it stops. Good so far? That is essentially a spell power effect for Psystorm specifically on a target, and it ramps over time. But it's actually a debuff, essentially, on the target itself. So if they were to walk into another storm, if they were at 2 stacks, they would immediately start taking 2 stacks worth of damage from that storm. Why does that matter? Well, Tass has talents that cast Psystorm. So Psionic Echo. Casting a Psionic Storm causes your next shock within 3 seconds to only cost 30 mana and create a Psionic Storm on the enemy. Okay. And Arc Discharge, when Resonance Beam is fully charged, Tassadar basic attack range is decreased by 1, and its next instance of damage also creates a Psionic Storm on the target. So we have 2 level 7 talents that both create a Sonic Storm, or a Psionic Storm. That means that the second Psionic Storm, assuming optimal damage use case, does the last tick's worth of damage for the entire duration. So there's a big difference between 83 and 167. Obviously it's double. Like it's a huge difference. So we take some other random trash talents here, blah 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 blah.
Choose a talent.
Whatever, and then we get to Psychic Shock. Psionic Storm deals damage 25% faster.
Choose a talent.
So those ticks come out faster. You can see them coming out faster. But now we're at max damage. Oh, we got a max damage faster. So it essentially adds 2 ticks of full damage to the storm, which gives him far more burst. So that's like we're at level 20. That's over 300 damage. To compete with like Thermal Lance, 300 damage, the target would need... I should have done the math in advance. I should always just do the math in advance and have it like in a notepad. That'd be so much nicer. They would need 7,500 health for Q to be as much damage as the extra 2 ticks. But wait, there's more. Because of what we were talking about earlier with the Q. So, the storm duration. Oh, look, a second storm! Well, how many extra ticks did that storm get? Well, that storm is getting, theoretically, it could get its full duration of extra damage ticks, right? You could get a full, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Theoretically, you could get 8 ticks of the full damage from Psychic Shock. Even without Psychic Shock, like, reset balance.
Choose a talent.
We'll just do the normal storm.
Choose a talent. Choose a talent.
Was that 6 ticks?
Choose a talent.
Do. I should have reset cooldowns. It's not going to make it. Here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I did it too late. You can't realistically get the full. You have to like start casting Q to account for the travel time. There we go, like that. There we go. And then now we get 6 ticks of the 160 damage. So we get 6 ticks of 167 bonus damage from the second storm, whereas the first storm only got 1 tick of that. And then if we have the 16, this is now an 8-tick storm, so it'll get 3 ticks of the max damage. And then the second storm will get 8 ticks of the max damage. Now, granted, that takes 6 full seconds, so you're not always going to... It's unlikely that you get the full amount of damage, but realistically what ends up happening is you just cast Storm and immediately do this, and then both storms are on the target, and they're both ticking each other up. And the stack... So you end up with like a 3.5-ish second situation where you end up, instead of getting 1 full damage tick, you get like 6 full damage ticks. That's pretty realistic, and between the 7 and the 16, you essentially generate 4 bonus full damage ticks. Which we established, it only takes 2 ticks for it to be relatively comparable to the Q, right? So the question that people asked was, how much damage did it do, and would the other talent have been better? Obviously, this is a very easy question, or a relatively easy question to answer if we have Spazo's tool working, but unfortunately for this specific game, it does DC. So we're going to have to do what I used to do, which is look at it manually. Well, I was just looking at the individual ticks, like the crit kicker. I was not looking at the total damage on the right. If you're looking at the total damage on the right, some of that damage is being overlapped with part of dummy. So we're going to fast forward through this game. I think I missed one question. But if I missed it, I missed it. Whatever. We'll examine Dino's Tassadar in fast forward. But the point is, if you're going either of the 7s that generate another Sonic Storm, it's incredibly likely that Psychic Shock is always the best 16. We had another game where someone took Executor's, I think it was Nano, took Executor's Will, and I don't think that was better than Psychic Shock. Psychic Shock is really hard to underestimate because it's not intuitive that doing the damage faster increases the burst, but also increases the ceiling of the potential damage. Like, it's very difficult to understand that intuitively, I think. But again, we were kind of looking at, we were looking at the max, and then we were looking at like the average. But now we're gonna go look at an actual game and see, well, what is the actual average in a real game? Dino did us the favor of taking a level 7 talent that does spawn in Sonic Storm, so we'll be able to have like a very strict 1-to-1 comparison.
Funny. There used to be a fort there.
I have looked at this before in a Scrim game, where Priz was in season 1 of CCL, where Priz was playing Tassadar, and he did take Q16. for the percent damage into a. It was actually a Blaze Diablo that was on Shrines, and it was more damage. And that replay I did use Spazzo's tools. It was possible. So,
Don't ask me where
but
to go.
it's only one game. Having more data, even for manual analysis, gives me stronger opinions, like more firm opinions. So now we're 16. We only care about when he's hitting heroes. We don't care about all this hitting minions nonsense, which is normally my favorite thing in the game.
Reclaim themselves. Well done. The spiders shall leave.
Okay, so we're hitting a hero here. Charge in. We wall him in. We get the W. So now we're ticking up that damage. We black hole instead of Q, which I'm reasonably okay with. And then we Q, and the Q misses the Diablo, right? Because if it had hit the Diablo, it would have spawned the storm over there, but it actually spawned it over here.
Dead.
I think Captain Rex dies no matter what, so we're not going to look at it. So far, neither one really mattered. We did a little bit more damage to the Diablo because the storm ticked up a little bit faster. We spawned a storm that ticked a little bit faster than the Anduin, but I think the Anduin is dead no matter what.
I guess they'll have to go on without that force.
I'll also note the W talent is Insane Siege, whereas the other talents don't have that advantage. So task 16s are not created equal in terms of PvE versus PvP. Even if we discover that Q16 would have been more PvP damage this game, which could happen. The random storming through on the tower there, for instance, like that matters.
One less
The little bit of poke damage done to buildings. Like right here, the minion wave being cleared faster now means minions are hitting the building sooner. That matters. A little bit of extra damage to the Blaze there. Unless Blaze dies before he gets to full health, that shouldn't matter. This, by the way, hurt. Oh no, this is a different one. Here the kill actually happens. Okay. I feel like the business cat meme right now. I should blame her death thing. Here we go. So we open with the black hole. We get the W. The W is ticking up faster. We do get the Q. So here, it's really interesting, right? He gets pulled out of the storm. The storm got one extra tick from the level 16, but we've established that it takes two full powered ticks to equal what the damage would be on a Diablo. Right? We just did this in Trem mode. We actually already know the answer to this one. In this specific instance, Q would have been more damage, but Diablo died anyway. Like Diablo was already dead no matter what. So it doesn't matter. Like he took 104 extra damage. He would be dead like here, 8% of his health. I don't know what his health max was there, but like 8% of his health, he would have been died. Arguably, Q would have been worse because he might have died before the pull, and then pull would have been available. Wouldn't have been wasted.
I'm in the groove. A reprieve.
Yeah, Diablo was really. I mean, we can check the overkill. 128 overkill. He was real dead, and that wasn't even like there was more damage to come. They were not out of damage. Again, we're taking this camp a little bit faster.
Well fought, warriors. I offer you my aid.
I think genuinely, I think people really underrate Psychic Shock because it's not like the majority of task games that I have where people play tasks, they did not take Psychic Shock, and it really is like quite a bit better. It looks like task W lasts 0.4 seconds after the target leaves the area and it reapplies every quarter of a second. Yeah, the timing is a little tight in terms of like getting the second storm to benefit from the first storm spot, but it like a little practice. I didn't know the exact numbers. I played enough tasks to where I got good at it, and then I stopped playing tasks. Here, we hit a bunker. Like, Psychic Shock is going to do more damage to the bunker. Does the bunker die? Oh, look at that. The bunker dies. The bunker died faster. This is actually hugely important. Because bunker's dead. You can't hide in it anymore. It actually matters quite a bit. But the second storm got spawned on a different target, so we didn't get it to take advantage of the pre-stacking nature of the potential of the 16 talent. We did hit a Diablo though, and we already know if we don't pre-stack the storm. So this is like assuming Diablo stays in the W the entire time. We know that these are roughly equal. Actually, let's check Diablo's total health. 3479. So Q16 would have done 279 damage here. And Diablo clearly walks out before the extra ticks of storm happen. So Q would have done a lot more damage there. Would he have died? No. He's alive. He's alive either way, so it doesn't matter. And I genuinely think Bunker would have lived longer with that W. Yeah, spell armor is something you can consider if you want to think about that. Like if you're looking at if you're into Diablo with Soul Shield, but then they also have a Brightwing or something.
Remain alert. Well fought.
Dark Matter. Wave to the stream, Dark Matter. Wave to the stream. I think we missed. So I don't think Blaze had a stack on him. So a little bit of bonus damage there. You guys got 2 bonus ticks, and we know the Q hit him. So back, what was that? 133. What's Blaze's total health? 6 115. Wait, did the thing not update when I tabbed over to Diablo earlier? I think it didn't update. So that's 489 damage. So Q16 would have been more damage though. It would have been more damage to the Blaze. It would have been less damage to the building. Because Blaze only got hit by 2 extra ticks, essentially. For 180 something each. So it's a different damage difference of like 100, which is not hugely substantial. But Blaze does heal to full, so none of the bonus damage that could have happened matters. I think he probably overhealed by at least 100 with the top. This hurt me to watch live. Hasu probably should have anticipated that Bloodcool was going to keep dragging the Blaze, but he basically misses the entire scatter because Bloodcool keeps dragging the Blaze after he's like here. Bloodcool should stop so that Hanzo can line up the scatter very, very easily, and then Blaze is guaranteed to die from the percent damage from the 16. But instead, only like 2 of these arrows hit. Let's see. It's really hard to know that. It's a very Han specific thing. It's like once someone's next to the wall, you should just stop because that's where Hanzo wants them next to the wall, but they also want them stationary because it's a skill shot. No, I don't think you should need to ping it. I think it should be automatic. And you can see he lives with 290 health, even though 5 arrows missed. Like, eh. I think the 5 arrows would have killed him, even without the percent damage. If I'm being honest. But... So there, we get a Q that didn't spawn a storm. So Q16 definitely more damage there. Like, that's just a given. Diablo did heal to full. Hard to know if he would have been able to heal to full from Q16. W16 is actually winning quite handily here, in my opinion. Like, the amount of PvE damage it's done, the fact that it killed Bunker a little bit faster. Like, there's one scenario where Q16 would have, or 2 scenarios where Q16 would have done a little bit more damage. But it actually wasn't a substantial amount more. Like, it wasn't the difference between a kill versus not a kill. That's going too fast for me to see what happened.
Press on to victory.
The clutch is filled. Your enemies desire my power.
We get the wall here.
Aid them.
The storm doesn't spawn and Q missed. So.
Web weavers.
W16 does more damage there. Because, like, the storm hit and the Q didn't.
Another corpse in the Nexus.
I don't think that mattered either way. Although, looking at it from the Sill's perspective.
Web weavers.
She doesn't have E. She has Bolt. Oh, the scatter just completely nuked her though, right? I think that mattered. I think W16 actually got the kill there. Because I think Sylvanas could have bolted out if the faster tick rate hadn't killed her faster. It's really hard to say for certain, especially because I think she died before the scatter actually landed, and I think the scatter would have killed her anyway.
Web weavers come.
No, the scatter missed completely. Yeah. I think there's a good chance she could have bolted. I think she would have died. I think maybe she would have died anyway because she was all out of other cooldowns. That's something she could have. Well, she still had Tier 16. She might have maybe from the movement speed. It maybe mattered there. I think it's unlikely that mattered there, but I think W16 actually helped secure that kill much more reliably because of the faster tick rate. I actually think it mattered. It's really hard to say in situations like that. Like, that definitely mattered.
Web weavers.
Again, a little bit of extra PvE damage there. Clears the way. I think the wave gets cleared out of the way, but it did clear the way faster.
Gems to my altar. Before the gems are mine, my power shall aid you.
Clears the boss faster here. You get 2 extra ticks.
Web weavers shall weave a web of death upon your foes.
Timing doesn't end up being that tight
Well fought.
in terms of dealing with mental invade, so it doesn't matter.
I need assistance.
So there, he gets the Q on the Nano. It spawns. He gets the Q on Nano. It spawns the storm. But Nano didn't stay in the storm because it was just like a poking situation. So Q16 actually would have definitely done more damage there, even though it's a Mephisto with a relatively lower health total. Again, they don't stay in the storm, so Q16 would have done better there. But at this point, he's just zoning away while his team kills the Diablo.
Your enemies just can't keep it together.
Q doesn't hit anyone.
Keep destroyed.
Only one extra tick from Psychic Shock there? Oh, I actually have to look. I actually have to do like the exact math. Because Blaze is so close to dying.
I like it. You keep things interesting.
Okay, so that Q spawned the Storm. Storm was on cooldown. He gets 1 tick. So he gets 3 ticks of the bonus damage, but they're actually being reduced by the Blaze 16. Blaze, at his lowest health... This is gonna be really funny to me. If it actually, like, would have made a difference.
Just burning through that heat, aren't you?
Blaze at his lowest health was at 796. So 8% of his max health is not 7. He's at 6. He's still at 6614?
Down a peg or two.
Yeah, he's at 6614. Oh, maybe it would have. No. It wouldn't have. But it's much closer than I expected it to be. So PvE, we had like 8 storms that mattered. We had a storm that mattered against a non-hero target that mattered in a fight, which was Bunker. And we had several cases where it didn't matter, and one case where it definitely did matter, or probably mattered, and one case where it might have mattered if it'd been the other talent, maybe Blaze dies. For me, that's a pretty ringing endorsement of W16. Because the amount that it did just in the PvE was incredibly significant, and the amount that it did in fights into the bunker. And Diablo Blaze is a pretty tanky frontline, and we had a couple Qs on Blaze, we had a couple Qs on Diablo, and most of the time it was basically a tie in terms of the total damage that might have gotten done. But W has all these other benefits, and Q16 has no other benefits. So I think Q16 can be better. But you might honestly have to be in like triple frontline. But even then, triple frontline, Storm ticking up faster is really important. So I'm just not sure. I'm honestly, man. I used to be a little more ambivalent about this, whereas like maybe because I had a game where Q16 was definitely better, but it was one player, it was one map, it was one draft, it was very favorable, and Q16 was better. Like I went and looked at it, and Q16 did end up being better. But a big part of that, arguably, was the fact that we were also that in that game we had a Tychus, so in terms of percentage damage, we were frequently getting sub like 3-second kills. If you're getting sub 3-second kills, the slight ramping effect from Psychic Shock actually gets somewhat muted. Because by the time it substantially contributes more damage, the target's already dead. Right? And here we kind of have the Hanzo, but unless Hanzo actually lands a scatter, it's not really the same. And Tomb is a fairly difficult map to land scatters on. In a lot of places. So yeah, W16 is better. I'm actually really glad I looked at that because again, it's one of those things where there's only so many games I have access to that are like are reasonably competitive. If we get another game with Executor's Will, I might take a look at Executor's Will. Executor's Will is a little bit difficult to look at because you got to pay attention. Like CDR talents are always hard to evaluate because you have to be paying attention to whether or not the CDR gave them an extra thing like directly in the fight. I think Q16 struggles with W16. It's not really cute. Do any Q talents really help Thermal Lance though? Like static charge. This doesn't really like. This doesn't really make Q16 better. This doesn't make Q16 better. This is I mean this is CDR, so sure. But so okay, so this gives you CDR. You think this helps you get How does this help you get CDR? Because of the beam charge? So you hit Q, you get charged slightly faster. You get Qs back faster. And then you Q again. I kind of hate that because it feels like Q16 is a burst talent. And I don't think you're going to cast multiple Qs on the same target in the same fight, like reliably. I don't think that's super realistic. Unless maybe you're Archon. But then if you're Arc, I really hate playing Archon without Arc Discharge for the increased auto range. I don't know. If there is a competitive full Q build played in the tournament, we will go over it thoroughly because I literally don't think I have a competitive full Q build in my entire Scrim database. And that's the last question. Look at this question because I answered it. I can look at this question because I answered it. And we're done. Mark these in red to indicate they were already asked once. Beautiful. That's going to be it from me. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for Ultralisk hosting me partway through. Appreciate that. I'm going to find someone to send you guys over to who is also playing the dead game that is Heroes of the Storm. Ooh, Yasu. Yasu streaming. Thank you all for watching. Really appreciate it. I actually didn't get any subs. I think it's the first time we've had in a while where no one subbed. Oh my god. Great. Remember, this is a stream where we never lose, we always win, or we learn something. Learning is always a win. I'll see you guys for the show next week after the next round of the tournament. Have a good night, everyone.